Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the Dream Job Podcast. My name is Riley Warren.
And I'm Shannon Jacobs.
And we're very excited to welcome our next guest, Mr. Jeremy Spicer, the president and owner of SASI Leadership, conductor of Cedar Park Winds, and marching band program coordinator extraordinaire. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you and to hear about all of your stories and wealth of knowledge and all the great things you've been able to be a part of over the year in Texas Marching Band.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here and can't wait to chat.
So one of the things we like to start with all of our guests is just give you a chance to talk about your history, what got you excited about music, what were some of your origins. Just kind of start from the beginning and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I grew up from Floresville, Texas, which is south of San Antonio, about 35, 40 minutes. Went to Floresville Middle School, Floresville High School. And what got me into music, I don't have the straight trajectory. It wasn't one of those things that I went, I can't wait to play trumpet because I'm a trumpet player. I actually, my first year or my first semester in sixth grade, when most students start, I was in theater arts. I didn't even join band. The whole reason I joined band eventually was a friend of mine who was in band and playing trumpet, and he said, "I play trumpet. You should come play trumpet." And the rest is history.
Oh wow!
That's how I got in, and I started my second semester of my sixth grade year, and never looked back. I fell in love almost immediately, and yeah, I mean that's how it happened. I remember moving into high school and just loving marching band, loving every aspect of marching band that it brought. I love concert band. I just loved playing my trumpet. And I knew very early on, my sophomore year, it's like, well, yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Wow.
I mean, there was never a doubt on my end about the direction of what I was going to do. There were maybe some family that wanted me to pursue other things, or even other teachers, but it never resonated with me like the band world did. So I knew very early on that that's what I'm doing. I ended up at Texas State University for my degrees. It was Southwest Texas at the time. Go Bobcats!
Right. Eat 'em up cats, right?
Yep.
Is that what they say?
Eat 'em up cats. And it ending up there also, it's all very happenstance. I went to before it was a super regional, I went to a BOA regional at the Alamo Dome.
Oh wow!
And Mr. Hudson's band was playing, and there were 50 trumpets playing double G's, and everyone was just, the drum line was huge, and my brain went, that's where I'm going to school. I want to be a part of that. I want to know what that's all about. And it just so happened that lots of other people in the band directing world and our generation of the band directing world ended up at Texas State at the same time. And by happenstance, but we all wanted to be a part of that marching band, and Mr. Hudson had a big role in getting all of us there. So.
Wow. Yeah, we're going to come back and talk about Texas State because I think that's interesting how there are so many pretty legendary band directors in the state of Texas who came out of some of the years that you were a student there. I think that's really cool. So maybe talk a little bit about what was unique about the music education curriculum at Texas State. What was going on there that just made it such a great environment to learn how to be a band director?
I think a lot of it, in my opinion, I would give credit to two people. First and foremost would be Jim Hudson. And what he did with the marching band. I'll come back to that in a second. The second would be Mr. John Stansberry and what he was doing with the Wind Ensemble, and their partnership and how they worked together was pretty exceptional. Mr. Stansberry ran a band director, how to be a band director class that everyone takes, but he did it in such a way that was pretty masterful. And some of the things that just the little nuggets of information he gave us. And then everything with Hudson was a lesson.
Yeah.
He was such a dynamic personality. I emulated and wanted to be like him early on in my career, and you might remember as well. But I was the hat on backwards guy up and down the track at the football game, and that
we're going to have some video that has evidence of that.
Absolutely. So that was me, but that was me channeling my inner Mr. Hudson. I remember the first time that I heard or saw the marching band at Texas State after I was already enrolled, and we were headed to a rehearsal. The freshmen were doing something else and pulling up, and he was on a ladder at the top of this ladder with this big marching band in front of him, excluding the freshmen. His hat was on backwards, and he was jumping up and down and doing all. And I was just like, "Yes, I'm home.
Yeah,
I'm home." And so, back to your question, I think Hudson played a huge role. He would think nothing of stopping rehearsal in a marching band rehearsal and say, "Music education majors, band directors, raise your hands." We would all raise your hands. He says, "We're tearing right now," or "We're doing this right now, and this is how to fix it." And that was constant throughout the entire time we were there.
That's awesome.
Of giving very specific things. And some listened, some didn't, some tuned it out, some whatever. But for me, my ears coming from a small South Texas town and a small, at the time, 4A, what is now 5A high school band program, very small, that I was listening to and trying to gravitate towards everything he was giving me. So I think that was an exceptional thing. I think there were also some very talented studio teachers. My studio teacher, Dr. Keith Winking, was great. He was one of the best brass pedagogues I've ever met, and I learned a lot from him. For being there, one of the best things he ever did for me was he basically started me over.
Wow.
When I came to Texas State, I was not a very good trumpet player. I had a pretty messed up embouchure, had lots of issues, and he he started me over when everyone else was playing Arbon etudes and Brand etudes and all of these things and scales, like all of the stuff. He gave me a hymn book basically, and it was just long sounds for a long time until I got the tone quality that he wanted, and he would talk to me about how to do that, and then he started just laying the hammer down and developing me as a trumpet player. So
that's awesome.
I think the combination of those three, there were, of course, I could list so many teachers that were impactful there, but I think those three, with Mr. Hudson being at the top, was the reason. And the reason for so many great educators coming, I would also say Mr. Hudson. He was that Nick Saban come to your house, knock on your door, sit in your living room, talk to your parents about, hey, you need to come. You need to be here. And he did that with so many musicians in the band program at that time, from like the 90, 95, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in that area. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was beating the doors, and he was getting saxophone players, and he was getting trumpet players, and he was getting percussionists, as many of your mentors came out of that era, percussion teachers. He was recruiting all of those people. Trombone players, I specifically remember the trombone studio, and so it was just this very unique time period. There was also the jazz department at Texas State at the time was just through the roof, and I think a lot of that came from Dr. Winking and some of the other jazz teachers there. And I mean, some luminaries in the jazz profession now were at Texas State at the time studying.
Wow.
So
that's really incredible. I love to hear about especially the marching band kind of pedagogy, stopping and just asking everybody, hey, why is this actually happening right now? And kind of using you guys as the guinea pigs. I don't know that I've ever heard of a college program that does something like that. I think that's amazing. So I think a lot of people can maybe learn from that. And I don't know what it's like at Texas State now, but hopefully they've kind of taken that. And I know we have students that are always talking about going there. And
the staff there now is exceptional. I mean, Dr. Beatty, Dr. Glazer, like the entire Matt Holzner, they're all fantastic teachers and carrying on the legacy. I mean, go Bobcats. There's some great teachers coming out of there, and
Division I football team?
Yep, and I'll throw another plug in there now also for Dr. Cabot is back. I mean, she has always been there, but she moved out of some of the education teacher classes that she taught back in the day, and she was into more administrative roles. And then she recently retired and is back into the education roles that she was. So she's teaching those method classes again, and who better to learn from than the master educator, Dr. Cabot? So
that's incredible.
So I think the future is bright and continues to be bright there.
That's awesome. And San Marcos, great place to go to college for young people.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. I mean, it's a beautiful river town and lots of hills. And ironically, just watching a TikTok video of some mom taking her kid to campus, and the whole video was about how do you people do it here at Texas State? Like everywhere you walk, it's up and down hills. And she showed North LBJ, and it's just funny. Like this is what we went through. But no, it's a great place to go to. Great place to go to school. I had a lot of fun. And learned a whole lot. So,
and just right down the road from Austin, great music, town, especially. And I think we'll talk a little bit about some of your teching experience while you were in college that opened up some doors for you, and kind of right there in between San Antonio and Austin. But want to go on and talk about, at what point did you want to pursue marching drum corps? How did that tie into your college experience? I know you marched Santa Clara Vanguard. What was that like? What pushed you to take that step in your marching career?
Well, I always knew I wanted to march, and I'll say that my drum corps, my road to drum corps is a long story that I won't encumber too much of us with today. But going back to Mr. Hudson, how did I end up at the Vanguard? I ended up at the Vanguard because of Mr. Hudson. There was a hole that came in the mellophone section very late, not very late. I mean, it was probably mid-June, second week of June, something like that. Actually, no, it's probably second week of June, maybe first week. But anyway, he called. Dean Westman was the caption head, now the Blue Coats program coordinator, and just an amazing man, the director of orchestras at Avon High School. Anyway, he called Mr. Hudson and said, hey, we got a hole. Do you have someone that could fill this hole? And he said, matter of fact, through, again, the long story that I won't go into right now, but he's like, we do. I have someone that you should absolutely bring on. He's a trumpet player, and basically Dean said, if you vouch for him, tell the kid, me, that if I can get to California, the spot's mine. So sight unseen, audition unseen, I got on a plane and flew to California, and they picked me up in a van and took me to the Vanguard Corps Hall, and the rest is history. I learned the book in the corner of the Corps Hall. They opened up Miss Amana, which was a food truck, as a kitchen for all of us that didn't have a place to live, and so we'd cook on the food truck and live in the Corps Hall, and the rest is history.
You're like a trustee.
Yes, it was pretty incredible.
Which years was that?
That was 90. I only marched 98. I could only afford to march 1 year, but I'm so glad I did. I mean, I was 1 year away. 99, they won, but you know, I'll take the
you
silver.
Helped set them up.
Yeah, I'll take the silver. But just looking back on that, you talk about formative. In addition to Mr. Hudson, I would put at the top of the list Dean, and to say out loud, it seems crazy to say, but my mellophone tech was Bill Watson, who is if you don't know him, I mean, he's just a living legend.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, legendary. Yeah,
just legend. And he was my mellotech. That man was chasing me around a football field. Like, that guy was. And Dean was the caption head, and another gentleman, Jed Weeks. And just the whole approach that those teachers took with us. I mean, a lot of the things that I did, both at Cedar Park and eventually at Vandegrift, came from those three men, and what they were able to teach us in terms of how to put things together, why to put things together. And then from Dean, one of the key things there, I just learned just the passion that he just exuded passion for what he was doing. He just loved us, and he loved what the drum corps activity could do for young humans. So just taking and absorbing all of that, I also got to see just an amazing administrator and director, J.W. Kester. He woke us up every day on the road. Good morning, Santa Clara. Good morning indeed. And then he would go into where we were and the weather, and it was his thing. It was a special moment that J.W. did every morning. Nice. And he went on to be corps directors at several different corps around the activity, most recently, and he's now the corps director at the Mandarins. And
oh, nice.
Helping them go to the next level, as we've seen the last several years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I got there. Played mellophone, loved every minute of it. Got to play all the noodles and the wiggles and all that stuff.
All the rips.
All the things, and it just led to just so many experiences. And I mean, we've all done it. Like, it's just amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, and so great to see them back on the field. This year.
Yes, thank goodness.
Taking the financial route, getting everything squared away, and doing it the right way. Doing it the right way.
Yes, it's just, I didn't know what was going to happen. No one really knew what was going to happen after last year, and it was just all fingers are crossed. But that's a hard thing to come back from. So not only they came back, they're back with the force. I mean, they're back in the mix, like the Vanguard has always been, which is great to see.
Yeah.
And I look forward. I mean, from talking to a lot of the staff, especially the brass line, that most of them are rookies. So just to see what happens next year when you get a returning brass line with more people that aren't learning how to do drum corps again, like all of those, it's just sky's the limit for what they can accomplish.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think I might have stepped on some of your questions. We kind of got out of order here.
No, it's fine. So we talked about drum corps. That's then I assume you finish up college, right? And then you get your gig. And how did you get to Cedar Park? How did that happen? Was that through some of the teching you were able to do and your networking there?
It's funny. This is a funny story.
I think I've heard of this story before.
Yeah, this is a good one. So school opened in 98.
Right.
And then 99, fall of 99, on Mr. Hudson's office door, there were those pull tabs, they're cut and they're pull tabs, and we need private teachers. And they needed trumpet teachers, horn teachers, that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, sweet. And I was in the food service industry, like probably every college kid. I was working at Food Shack's barbecue, slinging meat and doing all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And then I saw this pull tab thing, and I want out of food service, and I need this job. So right, wrong, or indifferent, I'll own it to this day because I think it's funny now. But I ripped the sign down so that no one else knew. I was the first pull tab.
You heard it on the podcast, everybody.
I was the first pull tab that ripped it off. I kept the number. I took the sign down, and I called. And I drove out. And I remember the first practice. I wasn't being hired as a tech, but I was driving out to interview with the director of bands at the time, Ron Morrison. Steve Wessels, the luminary band director of all those years, was there at the time as the first assistant. A gentleman named Ronnie Pruitt was there, and the percussion director Paul Garrettson.
Yeah, we know Paul. We've talked about Spencer on this podcast.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
there's a connection there.
That was the staff, and I went out. They were on a field in split rehearsals. I remember the woodwinds were on what is the blacktop now, and the brass were back in the back with Ron and Ronnie doing some fundamentals, music fundamentals and things on the grass field. And I remember walking back there, and this was a second year school, and I heard sounds and tone qualities that I'd never heard before from a high school. And I heard a systems-based approach. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know why or how they were doing what they were doing, but I recognized something was different. And my brain went, I have to be a part of this. I just don't. So fast forward a few hours later, I was interviewing in Ron's office. And again, back to the Vanguard connection, the reason that I showed up or that I got the job at Cedar Park was because of Bill Watson. In the interview, because he is who he is, Ron called Bill right in front of me. That's why he's like, "You have Bill Watson on your list?" I was like, "Yes, sir." He was my mellophone tech, and he agreed to be a mentor for me. And he called. He's like, "Well, let's call him." So he called him.
Wow, put him on the spot.
Yeah, in front of me, and said, "Hey, I got this kid, Jeremy Spicer, interviewing here for a private lesson job, and this, that, and the other thing." And he was basically told Ron, like, hire him. You need to hire him. He's got a lot of energy. You're going to love him. Get him on the field. Let him be a visual tech for you. And that's what I did. I was initially hired to be a trumpet teacher. And then that fast forward and fast tracked me into helping. I was running around the field, just chasing feet, getting horn angles and feet in time. And that led to, over time, me taking a more active role in the visual program. And then eventually being hired in 2001. So I started in 99. I was there, and many of my classmates can attest, but I would drive up there 3 days a week. I was at rehearsal every single day.
Yeah.
And then as I got a little bit older into that 2000 era, they were paying me to come up, not a lot of money, but they would pay me at least gas to get up there, and I would teach the fourth band.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So I was really getting to cut my chops or cut my teeth and learn how to do it surrounded by great teachers. So
That's awesome.
then in 2001, the spring 2001, I guess no, it would be spring 2002 because I started in fall 2002 as a full-time director. But the spring prior, there was a position that became available. Ronnie moved on to another campus. I think he went to Conley High School in Pflugerville with Chico, and there was a position available, and I was hired. And the rest is history. I very quickly took on the role of running the visual program, and then soon after that, Ron turned the program over to me, the marching band program. And when Steve became the boss and became the head band director, he was gracious to let me keep that and allow me to further my involvement. He did a lot of things that, just because of who Steve is, I'll say it right now, I love that man. He's a second dad to me, and helped raise me in some of my formative adult years.
Yeah.
But he would allow people to give credit. The marching band was under the direction of Jeremy Spicer. It wasn't under the direction of Steve Wessels.
Yeah.
He would put the people that were doing the job at the top of the billing, and I always thought that was very, very cool and very respectful of his assistants. And he did it through all of us. He did it with Bob. He did it with Evan, and he did it with eventually Chris Yee when Chris took on the role there.
Yeah.
And there's just a legacy of band directors that came through Cedar Park. Jason Robb, another one. Manny Maldonado, another one. There's just so many that came through that we owe everything to Steve Wessels.
That's
and
great.
the manner in which he mentored us. We were all the names listed, very aggressive personalities. And he was able
Go-getters.
he was able to manage all of us and help the band program, but also help us grow as teachers. So I guess that's a long-winded story of how I ended up at Cedar Park, but so thankful for the connections that I made at the Vanguard with Dean and Bill and Jed, and that Bill would vouch for me to eventually lead me to get the job there. So had I not gone to the Vanguard, maybe I never get the job at Cedar Park, which means I never get the job at Vandegrift. And
Right.
fill in the blanks. So
Dominoes
it's
falling.
dominoes falling into place.
Well, you talked about a couple things I want to go back to really quick. The first one is, I want to go back to your desire to be in there and get this job. And I just think that maybe we're missing a little bit of that in this day and age. The idea that someone has to leave their college campus and drive, how many miles it was from San Marcos all the way to Cedar Park.
Yeah, it was an hour back then, door to door.
I mean, you got to want it,
Yes.
right? You got to want it, and it's not always going to be for, a ton of money, but that there's nothing that can replace that experience to go and get to test out your teaching chops
Yes.
at a great program or any kind of program. So I think that's really important for people to hear about.
And it's key that, especially like the best music education programs in the country at the college level, they're not going to teach you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing against the teachers teaching those education classes. There's just nothing like boots on the ground and being in it. And one of the key things I think for any young educator out there is that you got to have a mentor, and a mentor that's willing to go, no, stop. Hey, no, stop. You shouldn't do it that way. I mean, I tell this story all the time to young teachers. My first year, the first band I ever took to UIO concert sight reading, I got it taken over 2 weeks out of contest.
Oh, wow.
Like Ron and Steve called me. I got called into Ron's office, and he said, "You're taking the Barry saxes, bass clarinets, and the tubas." I was like, "Okay, and what are you taking?" He's like, "I'm going to take any of the other brass instruments that are non-melody instruments. Steve is taking all of the melody instruments. Steve is fixing that. I'm fixing this, and you're going to make sure that this is in tune."
Wow.
And I was at the time pretty flabbergasted. And again, those that knew me in my younger years, pretty upset. Because I was like, "Well, I know what I'm doing. What are you talking about?" Blah. What I didn't know at the time is they were saving me. Yeah. And they bailed me out. Like when I go back and listen to, and I have recordings of that band pre-getting taken over, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But I knew, and I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing what I thought I knew what I was doing. And they quickly took over, and I was watching what they would do, and then they would guide me all the way through. And thankfully, like we were able to get a Division I in concert sight reading, but it wouldn't have happened without them saying, "Nope, this is not working, and we need to help you." And they did. And there's another thing with that. This list has been passed around all over Leander ISD and beyond now, but I remember right around that time, maybe a little bit before, Ron also called me into his office and he gave me a list of the top 10. And it was this list he slid across the table and he said, "I want you to cut the band off and I want you to tell them one of those 10 things." And again, me at the time, I got offended. I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I'll tell them what I want to tell them. Like, maybe it's not on that list." And what he knew, he knew who he was dealing with in terms of being maybe a little overly aggressive and stubborn young teacher. But he's like, "No, you're going to cut the band off and say one of those 10 things. Pick one, mix them up. It doesn't matter." But what he was doing is he was training my ears to look for things because in a non-varsity band, I was teaching the 3rd and 4th band. Those 10 things were all happening. At any given rep, at any given moment, those 10 things were happening. And if I would do those 10 things, the band would get better. Yeah. And he was right.
That's awesome.
So, it's funny how that works. But the value of a mentor, it can't be overstated.
I love that. And the one other thing I was going to have you talk a little bit more about was, you got there and you saw all these things happening. They were just happening. You had not really seen it happen before, and you hadn't really heard some of these sounds. What were some of those systematic things that they had in place? Maybe some specific things that Cedar Park did from the very beginning that allow. And I think we're going to talk about this when we talk about Vandegrift. But what were those things specifically that they had in place that helped them be successful for so many years?
Well, I would say that everything is systems based.
Yeah.
There is a system and a process for quite literally everything. And what's neat to see as well, because I wasn't there from 98, but I was there from 99. So I've seen Cedar Park from 99 to 2024. Mm-hmm. And some of the same systems in place that were instituted in 98, 99 still happen. There's still Excel spreadsheets that were used in these early years that they still use. And that's crazy. You'll see people post about rank of rank and all of these things. And that's an inside joke for a bunch of assistants that have gone through the program at Cedar Park and the heads that have been the heads at Cedar Park. But those systems are still in place and are still being utilized today. the manner in the manner in which instruments are laid out, the manner in which they address long tones, the metronome protocols that are in place, the manner in which hearing times are set up for the region process, the manner in which the solo and ensemble, it's navigated and changed over the years of what solo and ensemble looks like within Leander ISD, but the systems are still the same.
Yeah.
How you function in the spring and what the concert bands do and why the concert bands do it that way. I mean, without going into like with the minutia and the weeds,
Sure.
It's just every single thing. There's a system and a process for it, and those systems and processes are taught, and then they're adhered to, and there's an expectation for that, no matter what it is. How you get on the field, how you when you're talking, when you're not talking, how rehearsals are run. Like there's just everything is down to the finest detail, and the kids know it. The parents know it now because it's the 20 years of Cedar Park. Like everyone just knows what these things are, and if you don't know, then you're very quickly taught them.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the key to it as well. That it's not just left to chance. That everything is taught from the jump. So I would challenge anyone out there that if you're looking to improve any aspect of your program, try to be more system and process oriented in whatever it is you're doing. If you expect the students to do it, there has to be a system in place, and that system has to be taught.
Yeah, that kind of the buck stops with you mentality, you know. And
Yeah.
I think Lynn Jackson has a great thing about that, but go ahead.
I have a follow-up, and it's kind of for the young teachers out there. You've been talking about your mentors and finding mentors, and then you talked about emulating those mentors in your early years.
Yes.
What did that look like for you, and how did that change as you became more experienced?
Well, I would just say in the beginning, I was a mime bird. Like I would sit in Ron or Steve's rehearsals, and they would say something, and then their clarinets would get better, and I would go, okay, that's what I have to do. I need to do that. So in the beginning, it's just very mime bird, and even if you don't know why it's working, say it anyway.
Yeah.
Like I think that's a key thing for all of this, that you're learning and mime birding. I would also say that I would, in the very beginning, I wasn't able to. It was always in my brain that I was going to teach middle school first because I thought that's what I needed to do. And I would talk to Ron and Steve about that because both of them were middle school teachers as well before they became high school educators. But that wasn't going to be the roadmap if I wanted to end up at Cedar Park. And one of the things that Ron made me do, A, I taught the fourth band, but B, he made me highly encouraged. I had to pay for it, but he highly encouraged, but he built in during the day that I could take private lessons on the woodwind instruments.
Oh, cool.
So one day a week, I would be with Gary on clarinet, learning clarinet. My wife was a flute player, so she could help me with that. But I took lessons from all of these different teachers to learn how to play the instruments better. And I think there's no replacement for, especially as a brass teacher, learning all the woodwind instruments. And as a woodwind teacher, learning all the brass instruments. One of the cool things that I learned, well, that was not that I learned, but was driven home by Chris E. when he took over at 4 Points Middle School, and he was a brass teacher with Amy at Canyon Rouge Middle School. But he learned to play he's a trumpet player, but he learned to play all the brass instruments very well, like proficiently well. He could play class 1 solos on all the instruments, like he could do it. And his big thing was, yes, it may sacrifice a few classes as I'm learning, but when I learn it, then I'm in, and he's going to be able to help at a higher level. So I think that's the key in the beginning, is just being willing to step outside of your comfort zone, knowing that you don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing, just go attend rehearsals, other people's rehearsals. I would go and watch. I would carve out my section rehearsals such that I could attend something that Steve was teaching.
Yeah.
Like I would be able to go sit and watch Steve teach his clarinets in the second band, and then I'd hop on over and I'd have my clarinet section the next day or a few days later, and I would just, okay, well, he did that, so we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And that's just what it was. I think not all programs have access to a private lesson teacher program, but those that do, utilize that not just for them to teach the kids, but for them to teach you. Ask all the questions, because I think that's key to your ultimate success. Is you just have to be willing to know that you don't know, and that's all right.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's like you're done. You get a degree. You're in the job, and your job is still learning.
Yes.
Right. So you can disseminate information.
Yeah, at the most effective way possible. Absolutely.
So great. 8 years at Cedar Park. 7, 8 years?
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, through 09, so through spring 09.
And so we're going to get to watch the culmination of your time there. We're going to watch a little bit of this Cedar Park High School band. So this is UIL State Finals. Give us the, pitch us what this show is, kind of what was the design process, what were some of the things happening in the marching band world at this time?
So the design process, there wasn't really one. Bob and I worked together, and I kid you not. So I marched 98 Vanguard. I always wanted to do Copeland, the Grog Symphony. Symphony.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was always I got to perform it. I always wanted to do it. So we were on our way. He was on one bus. I was on another bus, and we designed shows this way many years. But he was on a bus. I was on a bus. I was like, hey, I want to do this. And then he came back with something else. I forget what if he or I suggested. I don't remember which, but I knew I wanted to do that, and I wanted to play the Agnus Dei, the Barber, the Adagio, and he's like, "What about Medea?" And I was like, "Done. There's our show." Like, there it is. So we were driving down, and that's what
awesome.
it was. It was going to be the Copeland and the Barber, Adagio, and then the Medea. And the title, people ask all the time, like, well, the title was called On Edge, and where did On Edge come from, and all of this stuff, and they're looking for this deep hitting meaning. And it was Bob and I just chatting about, music sounds kind of edgy. How about we call the show On Edge? And that's literally where it came from.
Nice.
And this band, one of the highlights of my entire teaching experience happened at the BOA Arlington Regional that year. With the performance, they came out, and in finals at that regional at the time, they let all of the high school kids come to the home site. So it was a perfect bando show.
Oh, nice.
Bando show. And that was also the time where, I never really changed this, but I unleashed the brass that night because we were in the hunt.
Oh, wow.
And I was in the audience. It's one of the few times, and those that know me, I rarely went into the audience. I was on the track.
Yeah.
It was a control mechanism for me. It didn't really work. But I paced the track. That's where that came from. But this one night, for whatever reason, maybe Bob called me up or Steve called me up, made me come up. And it's one of 2 or 3 performances that I watched from the stands, and it was electric. It was just amazing. The students' reaction to our students performing.
Yeah.
It was pretty special. And it was also the year that Bob and I really, really learned how to work together.
Yeah.
Which is a key thing. Him taking over much of the visual aspect of the program, me taking over, or I always did. I did both, but I knew that I can't be a jack of all trades and master of none. I need someone to help me, and I turned that over to Bob, and he took that to the nth degree and ran with the visual program, and I ran the music program, and this is what we got in the end. It's pretty special.
Awesome. So we're going to watch a little bit of this Cedar Park High School Band 2008 UIL State Finals, On Edge.
And you'll hear in the beginning while it's going, this is just Steve Wessels at his finest with his clarinets. And if you can hear that, it's so loud.
Yeah.
That woodwind section. And it's clarinets and bass clarinets, right center stage. It's all choreography that Bob and I wrote together.
Little xylo solo there.
This is also, if you want to pause real quick,
Sure.
This is Manny had gone down to CTJ and opened it with Jared down in San Antonio. His family was from San Antonio, so he made the move down to San Antonio, and this was Paul's first year with us.
Oh, wow.
He came over from Georgetown.
I didn't put that together, but yes, Paul Pape, 2008, first year at CP.
Yes.
Awesome. Some tasty Paul Pape beats.
Yes.
Right.
And this is the moment where the Arlington kids lost their mind because you have this whole backfield thing, and then we do this. And I still have a text from Brian Christian talking about this in the box at state. So that was one of the most visceral experiences I've ever heard.
That's awesome. What a cool form.
And now we're off into the Grove.
And who wrote the drill?
This was Pete Weber.
Okay.
And Michael Klesch wrote the book. The percussion book was a combination of Manny and
Tyler?
Tyler did some, and the closer, we're probably not going to get to, but Aaron, one of the percussion techs, Aaron Easley.
Wow. Drum set guy.
Yeah, drum set guy transcribed some music from '93. Paul won in '93, some of the '93 star beats. So there was some '93 star thrown in there.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
So just great Pete Weber counter motion drill.
Yeah.
Into the compression. And this is where Paul got to flex. There's this little combined snare tenor moment where this long roll, and it's just.
I love that break drum.
Good job, break drum. I was going to say, Shannon, break drum.
Yeah.
Right here, this roll.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go, Paul. Love his lines.
Just amazing. Like the Paul Pape clean. Like everyone knows it. He did it at Georgetown. He did it here, and he did it at Vandegrift. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Again, woodwind voices for days. Into the brass. Cool tag. Just great drill.
Yeah, great drill.
Everything is set up so well.
Yes, and Bob cleaned it beautifully. Yeah, just so many great moments. That went on into the Adagio. We ended the Adagio by singing. It was something I always wanted to do at the end of it. So
nice.
we sang at the end of the big arrival as we tagged out, and then right into Medea. It was crazy to think about it now. Like we were running around at 208, like 204, 208. Like it was just maybe not the smartest decision, but Bob and I just had no fear.
Yeah.
So it was like, let's go, and we did it, and they did it, and the kids did it. But there's some moments like you see them full out sprinting.
Yeah.
In the closer. So yeah, it's good
That's
stuff.
awesome. And we'd love to watch more of that, but like I said, we've got so much to get to, and have loved hearing about your time, getting to this point in your career with Cedar Park. And I think we're going to go into your next venture.
Yeah.
Shannon, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, sure. So you're at Cedar Park.
Yep.
And then eventually the opportunity arises to move to Vandegrift and open Vandegrift High School. Talk us through that process. What are some of the challenges, pitfalls? Like, were you hesitant at all to open a school?
Hesitant is an understatement. I actually turned the job down twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the story I would tell there's the public voice and then what was going on in my head.
Sure.
The public voice was, why would I leave? Like I got a jazz band that can play whatever I want. I got a marching band that just did that. I get to work with great people. My second band, the symphonic band, plays grade 5 music. I just played variants on a medieval tune in Jupiter with the second band. Like we were cranked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we were doing some amazing stuff. Why would I leave? Why would I leave? And that's the public voice. The personal Jeremy voice was saying, can I recreate what this is? And I was scared. So I turned it, you can ask, I turned it down twice. And then they started playing, not playing games, but they started asking me, so who would you hire? And they would bring me these names of people that were being considered for the job. And in my brain, when I was looking at these resumes, I was going, well, they can do it. Like, if this is nothing against any of those people, but like if they're looking at them, I know I could do this. Yeah. And it was one of those things that I finally called the principal, Charlie, late at night after I talked to Beth, my wife, and just said, hey, if the offer's still on the table, I'll take it. He said, it's yours. And that was about 9 o'clock at night. I can remember it distinctly. My hand was on my mantle in my living room in Cedar Park. And I hung up the phone and I told Beth, I guess we're doing this. And that's how it started. For the rest is history. Vandegrift 2009. And then from there, I buried my head and here we go. So yeah, it was a pretty special time. But to answer your question, yes, hesitant was an understatement.
Yeah.
And so you open the school and it's a brand new school. It's small,
very small,
and you start to build the program. What were some of the processes that you implemented really early that you knew would grow the program to the powerhouse it is today?
Yeah, we were very small. The students had the option to stay if they wanted at Cedar Park, and Cedar Park was such a thriving powerhouse. Why would you leave? Yeah. So there were a few, I will say, that took a chance on us and left with us. Yeah. Some freshmen that would be sophomores, 4 or 5 of them came over with us, and and opened it. Our drum major, Christina Barna, one of them, Mariah, Matt Shostak, Caitlin, who is now the director band or the associate
Rouse.
director bands. Yeah, Rouse. Yeah. She was with us in those formative years of
Shout out
Vandegrift.
Caitlin.
Yep, shout out Caitlin. She was a sophomore when we opened. I believe she was a sophomore. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, these students came over, and then we had a bunch of other young students from Canyon Ridge Middle School. I think we had 41 or 42 total students in the band. It was a little bitty band program. And I would say, like, in terms of what did we do, how do we do it? Well, the first thing, I mean, I tried to pick a show that would tug on the heartstrings a little bit. We called it Remembered. Matthew Vandegrift is a fallen soldier. He was a Marine who graduated from Leander High School. And that's our namesake. So the show was built around that in honor of him. We called it Remembered. That was also why the students got dog tags their first year, and then every year following, we kept that tradition of giving the students dog tags. But it all had a place in memory of Matthew. And the show was called Remembered, and we played the Copeland Symphony 3, which had lots of, like, the Fanfare for the Common Man quotes things.
Right.
And then I used Promise of Living as well.
Nice.
And then I asked Daniel Montoya, who wrote that first year for us, to thread the Marine hymn through the whole thing as the through line. So that was the show. And the kids loved it. The community loved it. My principal loved it. Everyone loved it. And then in terms of systems and processes, it was much of the same, but I knew we had to develop the individual player. That was key for us. But in the beginning, that we just had to develop tone qualities. They were all so young.
Yeah.
They're just freshmen, and the weight of the entire program is on basically freshmen with a few sophomores, a smattering of sophomores here and there. So it was all about tone quality. Everything was based in long tones, long sounds from the jump, a little bit of articulation stuff. We'll get to some of the percussion things that I used and stole from all of my friends a little bit later. But
Great.
Some of the systems of how we're going to play sounds, the things that we're going to work on, the use of the harmony director, all of those things were key, critical. Our region band process and how we approach the region band process and the development of students, what we did with the concert programs, and how Mike and I would split basically all the time.
Yeah.
I thought that was key. And how that transitioned again into what evolved into a new solo process for Vandegrift High School from what I had done in the past at Cedar Park, and being able to control more of the solo process and the judges that came in, and then which led into young artist competitions that are now prevalent all over Leander ISD and many schools in Central Texas. Yeah. That was an idea that we borrowed from, and I asked Joni at the Woodlands. She had a huge chamber concert, and I called her and asked her how she did it, and we tweaked it and adjusted and made it our own at Bandegrift, and that was another thing that became kind of a key tradition and component of the program. But I will say, from the jump, the vision for the program, and I got a little bit of flack in the beginning from friends and colleagues, but the vision for the program was defining the standard.
Yes. That was going to be my next question if you didn't go there, but I'll zoom out. What does that mean?
So I was actually teaching a camp at Rowlett High School, a leadership camp for Phil Alvarado, the legend band director Phil. And one of his students said something about, like, the definition of a standard or something like this, and I immediately on the water break went and wrote it down. And I was like, I think that's it. Because I'd been looking for, I had Move and Inspire at Cedar Park. That was something that I came up with as the vision for the program, that our job as the performers and band directors is to move and inspire the audiences that we interacted with, and they still have it to this day. Yeah. And I wanted something short and sweet that could be, I wanted to just do it.
Yeah.
The Nike just do it for the band world. That's why 3 words, Move and Inspire. And that's where defining the standard came from. And I put it out there, and some people took it as, whoa.
Yeah, who are you
to define what standard and what who says this? And I was like, no. I'm not defining your standard. I'm defining our standard, the standard for us.
Yeah.
And that was the mantra.
By the way, it's going to be a really good standard.
Yes. Very high. And the expectation was through the roof.
Yeah.
But we're going to define our own standard. And that was kind of the approach that I took, and Mike took, and Paul took, Stephanie took, Katie eventually took, all of the band directors, that we would put ourselves in this bubble of Vandegrift, and that it was the bubble on the practice field or the bubble in our band hall. Yeah. That we're gonna just push, and have very high expectations for each other and ourselves, and we're gonna treat each other the right way inside our bubble, and then we're gonna go outside of our bubble and see if other people like it. Sure. And if they like it, sweet. Then everything going on inside the bubble is great. And if they don't like it, well, then we need to change what's happening inside the Vandegrift bubble. So that was kind of the mindset, and we preached it to all the kids. It was on every tagline, like defining the standard, and that goes into, you define the standard in how you load the buses. You define the standard in how you lay your instruments down. You define the standard in when your parents ask you to do something, you say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. That is a tradition at Vandegrift that Mike and I started, and it was something, both of us growing up in South Texas with the fathers that we had, that's what you did. Like it wasn't a whether or not you want to.
Right.
If your mom says anything to you or I say anything to you, it's yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
We took that into Vandegrift, and we would make the students say it to us, and even more so to each other. Like they had to say it. The student leader said yes, sir, and yes, ma'am to each other. The students, if the leader asked them, said yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And this was the biggest. It caught the parents off guard. I remember very distinctly one student, and their parent was in the band hall for whatever reason, and that parent asked them to do something, and they just being a kid were like, yeah. And I turned and I went, excuse me, and the kid looked at me, and I was like, yes, ma'am. And the mom just smiled. And she came up to me afterwards like, thank you for that. I was like, you don't have to thank me. It's fine. It's nothing. But it was this mutual respect. And it's defining the standard for anything. How we walked in the stands, how we got out, how we walked in twos and silences, in silence, to any performances. Like everything you can define the standard on. When your parents are feeding you on a Friday night game, every student would say thank you. And if it's 40 thank yous the first year to now, it would be 400 thank yous with the growth of the band program. But all of these little things that, again, thinking about it from 2009 and now watching Mr. Littman there in 2024 and what
Cannot wait for that.
Yeah, and what Katie did the last several years as her iteration as director of bands and what Mike did, all of the systems are still there.
Yeah.
They just get tweaked and modified for the boss that's in front of the kids at the time. So, yeah.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about, because I think two things, just get to observe it in person was the region process and the young artist contest. Just like kind of brief overview of kind of what that was and how that worked with your kids on a maybe a little more specific level.
Yeah. So in the beginning with the regions process, we were able to do what I'm about to explain more easily because the band was smaller. But every kid got heard weekly in the beginning on their region music in some capacity. And we split the region music up. I don't know how many sections at the time, but probably 3 or 4 sections.
Sure.
Probably 4, I would imagine. So every etude 4, so there were 12 chunks over the 3 etudes. And every week they were assigned to band directors, and we would listen to them on that region music for a 10-minute hearing time. They would have to play a scale requirement and come in and play that. So they were getting private lessons with us. We would also have our private lesson teachers teach a region master class for them once a week. So they were coming in with an hour with a private lesson teacher. The whole trumpet section, for instance, was studying with Gil or whatever it was, whatever teacher for that given section. And they would get heard weekly, and there was constant feedback. Without posting grades, we would also post chair results of the entire band. So it wasn't like just the flutes against the flutes. I would put each week we would post them. Here are the results. And it was this internal competition where they would there were no grades. It was just, here's your chairs. And sometimes you'd have a tuba at the top. Sometimes you'd have a saxophone at the top.
Yeah.
And the kids would just see where they were falling in. So it was kind of breeding this competitive environment, not negative, but competitive.
Yeah.
And then Paul kind of ran it his own way, which you got to witness. But Paul would do ability-based sectionals based with the given instruments. So maybe it's wind ensemble snare or symphonic band snare, and then wind ensemble, the keyboard stuff, 2 mallet or 4 mallet. I don't remember when the 4 mallet came about, but all of that stuff, it was all ability based, and he was able to, because he did it at such a small level in terms of the kids in those ability based sectionals, he would have his own version of hearing times, but it would be like, Riley, play those 4 bars. Ooh, still don't know the music there, bud.
Yeah.
And there was opportunity for him to hold them accountable there as well.
Yeah.
So I think that was key in the region process. Fast forwarding to what became the Young Artist Competition and all of that, and trying to define the standard, I was a little bit disenfranchised with going to the stock solo contest, because some students would come in with maybe Mike or I or Paul or Stephanie or whoever, and they were doing their stuff, and they would not be getting very good grades from us, and they would quite honestly weren't performing at the level we thought they would. And then fast forward, they would go to this contest and maybe get a Division I.
Yeah.
Right.
On something that I knew wasn't a Division I quality.
Yeah.
So we started talking about well, what if we just ran this ourselves? Like, what if we just controlled? What if we challenged the judges to use all 5 numbers? If they wanted to use all 5 numbers, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then we created within that, I wanted to, because we were getting large. The state contest, the UIL state contest, is such a big contest that it's hard to feel personal engagement and get educational value from the judges that you're communicating with, because they just got to get to the next person, because there's 30,000 kids at UT at the time. So
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just the quantity of kids. So I was like, well, what could that look like? And then we turned it into a prelim, semis, and finals, which you got to see of every student participated at prelims. And then the judges at those prelims would advance kids from those rooms into a semis round that would advance into what became a finals round of, initially called a concerto competition, turned into a young artist competition. And we grew that, and it's turned into this very special thing. I convinced the band program to offer scholarships as awards. So there was a $750, $500, and $250 first, second, and third. But those monies could only be used for music things.
Yeah.
So if there was one student one time that paid for, they basically had a bank account of, they had $750 because they won, and they wanted to pay for their private lessons out of that. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
A trumpet player, Craig, won one year, and he wanted to buy a trumpet case. Okay, sounds good. We'll buy a trumpet case, whatever you wanted. So they would use it for, or if they wanted to go to summer band camps.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So it wasn't just scholarshiping for scholarshiping. It was scholarshiping to promote music.
Yeah.
And the parents were all about that. And then we took a play out of American Idol because the first year we did it,
Is this the college professor coming in?
So the first year we didn't have that.
Yeah.
So we had the kids performed, and then the judges had to figure out who won. So they went away, and there was the awkwardness in the auditorium for 20, 25, 30 minutes as the judges are doing their thing. And we're sitting there, and I'm thinking, and it kind of hit me like, what if we did this American Idol style? So the second year I brought in Chris Howard, Mike Howard's older brother, and phenom clarinet player. And the way that we built it, the day prior to finals was a dress rehearsal for the finalists. And every student got 30 minutes with our guest artists.
Yeah.
So they talked about stage presence and how to enter and how you bow at a piano and why you do it this way. And then they would have 20 to 25 minutes. So you'd have Chris, who's an amazing musician, working with all of these kids. He worked with a percussionist. He worked with a brass player, whoever. And they got, again, in the context of music education, they got 30 minutes with this professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next night, all the kids would perform, do their thing. And while the judges were tabulating, it was always, we always asked the guest artists to perform. So now you had a guest artist concert occurring in this downtime.
Yeah.
And then by the time it's all said and done, then the judges come back out. Concert's over. The awards are. All the kids got, any finalists got plaques. That was a big thing for us. We didn't want to give them just paper.
Sure.
Which is fine, but it was important to me that there was something. So they all got recognized with plaques, and then we did 3, 2, 1, and the kids got their money, and it kind of spread like wildfire all over Leander ISD.
And across the state too. I think there's more groups doing it.
Are doing it. And full credit to Joni. I stole the idea from Joni at the Woodlands. And maybe it was with Brett prior to her. I don't quite know, but I took it from her and brought it to Vandegrift, and it's kind of spread. And it's this cool opportunity to elevate the kids and provide educational checkpoints all along the way.
I love that. Well, one thing we talk about a lot and on this podcast is the importance of developing the individual musician. And so I wanted to ask you specifically about those two processes, because I think a lot of people will see a giant marching band like Vandegrift or a Cedar Park or a Round Rock or a Vista Ridge or a Marcus and think, wow, they're just a big marching band and they've just got all the techs and all the money. But it starts with processes like that develop the individual student. So thank you for going through that and kind of outlining that, because I think some people will take away from that.
For all the young teachers out there, and I'll give credit to my high school band director, Mark Watley. And he told me when I told him I wanted to be a band director, he said, "You want your band to be great?" And I said, "Yes, sir, of course I want them to be great." He said, "Make every student do the region process for their ability level, and make every student play a solo in an ensemble."
Yeah. Good time.
So
it's like, this is the time for a sound effect here.
Yes. Yeah. So shout out Mark Watley. And I took it to heart. It's always lived with me. And when I had the opportunity to do it, I learned a way to do it at Cedar Park, and then I tweaked that way at Vandegrift.
Very cool. Well, we kind of got a little bit ahead of ourselves, but let's take a moment to see. You've kind of talked about where Vandegrift started and how small it was. So we're going to take a minute and watch a little bit of that first year.
A little plug on this first year. This band was one ordinal from one judge away from advancing to the state marching contest in their first year.
Wow.
Had one judge gone one ordinal higher, this band in their first year would have advanced. Again, it was a neat thing. Just I use this all the time because there's 40-ish kids on the field, and at the time Hendrickson was also a 4A.
Yeah.
What is
the
now
earlier years.
Yeah, what is now the 5A level. At this time when Bandegrift was open, there was no 6A. It was just 5A at the highest. So we were all 4As. And Don had his huge band at LBJ, Don Haynes, luminary band director, amazing teacher. But across when I was in the box waiting for area announcements for finals, you look across and there's this massive 300 and something piece Garth band at Hendrickson, just like this army of kids. And then right next to it is like, burp. Yeah. What would have been like the most little mini me band thing on the planet.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was pretty special.
That's awesome.
What we were able to do.
So this is Vandegrift 2009?
Yes, 2009, performing Remembered. And you can see me pacing.
Yes. Down there in the
You'll see
bottom right, I think.
Yep, you'll see Mike and I pacing back and forth. Constant.
You were definitely impacting the outcome.
Yes, that's exactly
I'm
what I was doing.
I'm affirming you.
I was controlling everything.
Yes.
Not at all. This was also Pete Weber. That snare drum soloist with that cool touch. That's a bassoon player.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
There were only 2 percussionists in that front ensemble.
Oh, my gosh.
Mike taught all the others.
And Mike taught them initially
Yes.
before Paul came over.
You notice no battery.
I did not notice that, actually, even when I was watching that. Wow.
Yeah, there
Incredible.
was 0 battery, which created its own set of issues, but
Can
we worked
imagine
through
that
them.
created some headaches. Do not listen forward.
Yes. And we created a bunch of systems for that
Yeah.
because of that. The other thing that we did was
You can just tell the tone quality right off the bat.
Yeah.
what was the key? It was
Like
all
you're
about
saying,
sound.
even young penalty, you know?
And when you sound in tune together like that, you project more. Shout out Reagan Brumley, Highland Park.
Yes, absolutely. It just. The other thing that we did this year, while it's playing a little bit, but we went varsity, and people told me I was crazy. My brain was, these kids came to Cedar Park and competed varsity,
Yeah.
and if I can't teach them to be successful, then that's on me. So let's go varsity. Let's try it and see what happens.
Yeah,
We
why
did.
not?
Love that.
Trying to get as much woodwind color out of them that we could.
Yeah.
Really smartly written with the interjections.
Yeah.
Really great
What you
choreo
hear
there.
here. The brass players, if you want to pause real quick, that's a funny little moment because we would take things out that they couldn't do, and that used to be ta-ti-ga-da-ta-ti-ta, ta-ta-ti-ta-ta-ta, ta-ti-ga-da-ta-ti-ta, ta-ti-ga-da, and it had this double tongue in it, and over time,
Yeah.
and when we finally took the last 16th note out of it, they're like, no! And it turned into ta-ta-ta-ta-ti-ta.
One thing that I will never forget that Paul hammered home with me so often. I still fight this. Clean wins every time.
Yeah.
Clean wins every time.
You got to do it.
Huh?
Love the use of timpani, even today.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're still to this day.
Got to see him at a TBA recently with Mr. Hobbs down there.
Still
Freshman
use timpani.
freshman timpani player, doing great. Oh, nice little pathways there.
And this is where we really got into doing the math to clean visual of quarter sets, halfway sets, 3/4 sets, and teaching the kids prior to UDB and any of that stuff. They had to figure out their X and Y divided by 2, divided by 4, and we would make them get on. So it was talk about a very specific system to teaching kids how to clean. We would have to teach them how to do the math.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I call that visual subdivision.
Yes, you got to do it. And I think there's no greater way. Like, of course, get behind somebody, form, marching, all that. But for a 14-year-old, for them to know that I'm here on 2, they're on 4, they're on 6, they're on 8, that gives them, now they just connect the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when they connect the dots better, they're able to get in the form over time.
Yep.
So, and I'm not just like a true strict dot person. You have to do both, but in the beginning, we definitely need as much information as possible. Like you said, visual subdivision.
We do that. I stress with my batteries. Like in the beginning, like we're trying to be dot accurate.
Yes.
It gets October, it's like, man, you need to get in line, bro. Like, you know, the time is just getting lined out. But we all start with trying to be dot accurate every set all the time.
Mm-hmm. If you see, like, we didn't hold back on the drill. Pete wrote. I told him to go.
All the way out there on the 20 over there.
Yep. That was Daniel Chin on trumpet. This is Mariah Gonzalez on euphonium.
One thing I noticed I didn't bring up earlier is after that first impact, like you had the whole crowd clapping. Mm-hmm. Is that something you trained your parents to do? I think that's
that was
really
one
important.
of the things in the beginning. Because they didn't know.
Yeah.
And had they gone to Cedar Park, they would have known because all of the veteran parents would have clapped. So it was one of our booster meetings. We played the video of a run through, and I taught them. I need you to clap right here. I need you to clap here. Clap here. This is a golf clap after Mariah plays. With Daniel Chin, this is a golf clap. At this point right here, I need you screaming.
Yeah.
Maybe it was covering some things that I didn't want certain people to hear, but that's okay. Like, just play the game.
That's great. Yeah. Why not? I love preview shows for that purpose too.
Yep.
Yeah, trumpets.
One of the hardest
That's
things.
a really great ensemble sound for a band that size.
Yeah.
It
I think there
truly
were
is.
4 or 5 trumpets on the field.
Golf clap.
With the bow in.
Much tech presence in that first year? Did you get some people to come out and help?
Yeah,
or?
there were some key people in the beginning. Zoe Waterhouse was out there with me.
Mingo Fish Trap?
Yep. Jorge.
Yep.
Lopez was out. Adam Kroback was out and still there.
He's still there.
He's still serving.
Shout out Adam.
Yeah, he's just one of the best visual techs to do it. Just great.
He's awesome.
If you want to pause it real
guy.
quick, you'll hear this little ping pom pom ping pom pom ping pom ping pom pom ping pom. This is Daniel Montoya doing Daniel Montoya. Those are the be da da dee da da. It's Promise of Living sped up into a marimba ostinato.
Oh, cool.
And the kids, when they found out, like that, they just nerd out on some of that stuff. It was just Daniel being Daniel. It's really smart.
He's great. Takes up in the winds there.
Yep. Key with this is there's no hiding. Everyone had to contribute.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that.
And maybe there's one lead trumpet over contributing, but everyone's got to contribute.
No synthesizer, right?
I don't believe so.
I don't
No,
see anything.
I don't think so.
So
I think
all,
we're-
still amplified, but keyboards, marimba, timpani, rack.
What's funny about all of this is where it all started. I remember back in summer band, at the end of the first week, Mike was like, "You gonna play on the move?" And I was like, "I guess I have to." Okay. And he had the little battery, and I pulled all the kids in and told them, like, "Okay, we're gonna do this. It counts. We're gonna do it at 12 to 5. March from this yard line to that yard. Play me an F concert." And they were super excited. And it was one of the most awful things I've ever heard in my life. And Mike just looked at me and smiled. He's like, "Good luck with that. We're gonna go track." And the rest is history.
That's
Just
funny.
from that point forward, we just kept at it.
Yeah.
Little brain hymn stuff.
Nice. There you go, parents.
Yeah.
Yep. And we had the Vandegrift V up, holding an instrument you can't see.
Oh,
We were coming to right behind. But tried to put a little bit of a signature for us.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Cheer them
Yeah.
on.
So the beginning, and now grown into 400. It's crazy.
It is wild.
Yeah, I know.
Every chance I get to see the Vandegrift band live this day and age is always a treat. I don't know that I saw them last year at any point, but
I don't think we did.
I have an affinity for the Letters show. they did a couple of years ago.
Juliet Letters.
That was
might be
really,
my favorite I put together.
That was really, really, really special. So we're gonna get to talk a little bit more about that.
That was an idea from Dave Duffy, who kind of my partner in crime with design with Vandegrift and several other schools. He just at Grand Nationals with Aria Queen of the Night. We were in the box at the Miller box.
Yeah,
And,
that's a great show too.
Yeah.
he turned to me and he just said, very, very Dave Duffy. He said, Juliet Letters. And he just turned around and walked off. And I was like, what do you mean? He's
what
like,
does that mean?
Vandegrift, Juliet Letters. I'll fill you in.
Oh wow.
And it built out of that, and it worked perfectly for what Mike liked. He's a late romantic. Music, he loved that style of music, that kind of music, and then me finding things to mix around that to modernize what I knew that he liked. So that's where the Jar of Hearts came from for the ballad, and then it was always it's imperative to Duffy that Kissing You was how this thing led off.
Yeah.
That tune holds a special place in his heart, and that's just where it came from. And yeah, the sky's the limit from there. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into some marching band coordination stuff, but we want, before we leave your time at Vandegrift and talked about some just general high school band things, kind of walk us through from 2009 to state championship in 2013 with Midnight Beauty, right? Tchaikovsky. What are some of the processes that took? And we talk about this podcast all the time. It's not about the result.
Yeah.
It's more about the enjoying the journey and things. But what was the journey like from that band and to what we're about to watch in 2013?
Well, I mean, ups and downs, highs and lows. Like with every program, when 2010 was formative for us, and realizing our first maybe competitive success. Our second year, we in the Houston Regional, we made finals. For the first time, we ended up placing third, which was crazy.
Oh wow!
At that regional, playing Ballet for Martha. And that was a really cool moment for them. And then later on that semester or that season, we didn't advance the finals at the super regional. So which is fine. It is what it is. But there were highs and lows through that. We started challenging and doing some more challenging things the following year. I will say that the 2012 year, I think, allowed 2013 to happen.
Yeah.
2012 was really hard. Again, all my fault. But very purposeful. I just knew we had to push.
Yeah.
So the show
Americans in Paris.
Yeah, the American in Paris show. But I knew we had to push, and it was hard. And that we hired Jeff Sacktig that year to write the drill.
Yeah.
And I told him I wanted a Z pull in the end, and he turned it into a double Z pull, and it was just hard. The show was almost 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
pre-show and clarinet,
post-show,
drum major, clarinet.
Yes, all of
that
it.
would be a great one to go back and watch.
But it was real hard, and that band had a ton of freshmen in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, and that was the year that we almost made it. I think we were one out of the super regional. We were 15th, I think.
Yes, I remember that day because I was lucky enough to be on staff starting that year, and UT had played at PASIC, and I had done the PASIC thing in the morning, and I was coming to I made it all the way to San Antonio right as you guys were walking up after the finals announcements. I was like, so close.
Yeah, it was so close. We didn't know at the time, but we got the results later in finals that we were 15th, and I was like, oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
But that set up this,
Yeah.
and this was also when J.D. Shaw first started writing for us.
Yeah.
Was our first year in 2013, which a great collaboration. And it wasn't that anything about who was writing before. I just wanted something different. I wanted to rebrand our sound. I wanted to stay true to what I liked, which was classical, late romantic music. But I wanted to be done in a modern way, and I just cold called J.D. Shaw and said, "You don't know me.
Yeah.
I'm Jeremy Spicer, a teacher of this band, blah, 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 blah. And I'd like it to be, I'd like you to write my show. I love everything you did at the regiment, and I'd like you to take us on." And he watched the video of us, and he said yes. Thankfully, he said yes. And this whole beginning, this entire show came out of just some ideas. And shout out to Jarrett Lippman. I helped him in the beginning starting Johnson. Mm-hmm. And he was just doing modern things at CTJ that others weren't, that I wanted to utilize. And I remember distinctly, we went to Casa Rio. I asked him to help me to kind of the return the favor moment, and he did. And he brought this piece, "Lady in the Water," from the movie M. Night Shyamalan, or from the director M. Night Shyamalan.
I was like, there's a movie
Yeah, it's
named M. Night Shyamalan?
Sorry, from the director. There's a movie called Lady in the Water. And the
nice.
soundtrack to Lady in the Water had this one track, and he brought it to me when I told him that I wanted to do this Swan Lake idea that I didn't really know what it was yet exactly, but all of this, and this all came about very late, but I gave that Lady in the Water track. I also, the Swan from Carnival of the Animals, you'll hear in the beginning, all mixed with Swan Lake. And then we actually were going to do the aquarium for the ballad, and actually had written the aquarium.
Oh, wow.
JD really liked it, but it just really didn't connect with me, and I wanted to put us in in time and place, something I learned from Jude Boughton. But that's where Journey Through the Snow came in, the Tchaikovsky, and then the whole back half being Swan Lake again. But it's just some neat things, and I don't know how much we're going to watch.
No,
but
we should watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
You'll see in the end, when we first got it from JD, the whole ending was 180. So it was this for 2.5.
You'll see the lines at the front with the
Yeah,
woodwinds and the
but
drill. And
prior to that, it was all 180. And what you'll see that I did is I redid it all using Andrew Markworth helped me with some percussionist, helped me with some metric modulations to find the right tempo. So we started out of our little battle scene that we'll see in a second, but then we started in a halftime. It was at 90 beats a minute.
Yeah.
And then we metrically modulated up to another tempo. So, because I knew the kids couldn't run around at 180 for 3 minutes at the end of their show.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out what can I do, and I knew I could do this, but I needed a bump. And Andrew's suggestion was take it to here.
Yeah.
And this will allow the feet to be, and you'll see that. And then eventually we get to the us cooking.
Yeah.
And we run it out to the end. And so it paced beautifully at the back end of the show too, so the the kids could do it and perform at a high level. So
That's awesome. Well, we're going to watch the state championship Vandegrift High School Band 2013 UIL 4A State Marching Contest, Midnight's Beauty.
And this was put together and helped put together by Jude Boughton, myself. We have the white versus the black. There's a white versus black swan. You see the white up front. You see the black swan in the back on side 2. And then in the center is our Vision Dance Company, which Vandegrift would be nothing without the Vision Dance Company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Incredible program. Way that's set up.
Started our second year. We could talk about that later if you would like. But this
Yeah,
is
shout
the
out
whole
Holly
point of
Lyons.
this is this was supposed to be a gaggle of swans, is what based on a ballet that Jude had seen. So this is why they're all in the middle center, and we're passing back and forth these solos.
Yeah, that's why I was really adamant that we watched 2009 and 2013, because you would have never guessed that the 2009 band, freshmen in the 2009 band would have just graduated, I guess, right before this.
Yep. And so you see here, like all of those woodwinds came out of the front walls as the brass, and that was my idea, to pull the brass onto the stage from a naked field.
Yeah.
And then you
Super
see
smart.
our wing sets.
Yep.
Into.
Shout out Chime Player.
And that was the Stroke of Midnight. Midnight's Beauty.
Oh, there you go.
Bing, bing, that's what that was. And it became a motif. You see our black swan downstage with the white swan in opposition to each other, and the flags are in opposition to each other.
The duality.
So we wanted to do that the whole time. Chimes come back. And we head into Battle on the Ice by Prokofiev, which was a J.D. Shaw suggestion.
Nice.
Jeff Sacktig at his best.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the tactic girl, like unmistakable.
Big challenge there, spread.
Yes.
Front ensemble to battery there.
Yeah.
Bringing back some nightmares.
Not exactly together there in the end. Maybe a little bit of a rub, yeah.
A little bit of rubbing there. Oh, look at that set. Look how
Just so spread.
all over the place.
I think
man.
Vandegrift's kind of known for this, taking up the whole field.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's just Jeff.
But you
and
started
that's
it in 2009. You said, we're going to push the boundaries. And
One
we're
of
going to
Jeff's
the
big
20.
thing was it's got to be clear, and his way of making things clear is to go horizontal in many ways. And that you see that. Into our high brass, coming up shortly.
Quads, trumpets there.
It's funny that ba, 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 that used to be,
Yeah.
but it was 176 or whatever, and we couldn't do it. And I was like, can I hear just downbeats and drums? Keep doing the rhythm.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it.
That's fine.
Clean that right up.
Yep.
All these little boxes expanding and
Great visual representation of the music. Very musically conceived. And I forget, were you still on staff with us?
this was my second year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. It's not, that's a standard JD ending. Bing, bum, bum, as he takes it down through the chord tones. Just
Yep.
very signature JD.
Nice.
Nice.
And this is Andrew Markworth. Started, I think,
I think 2012.
yes, that's correct, 2012.
Yeah, this was really cool because I just love how the front ensemble had so much responsibility starting movements. They had the intro, there's a spot later on. It was really a challenge for them and for me as a young teacher to try to help mold that. Beautiful solo here.
Calvin Gong on euphonium, led by our soloist, bring us on the stage. Little double time. Into a beautiful presentation from the woodwinds. And one of these, this moment here we're about to get to is the non-arrival arrival. In that I wanted it to be all about shape and subtlety. And it was actually Enola Jones' feedback to me after the first show. She's like, it doesn't have to be loud, Jeremy. Just let it be pretty. Because it's what it is. It's a snowflake.
Little snowflake.
So you hear lots of shapes. And this was Jude making me do this with the dance team. It's just simple.
Yeah.
So I'm in
Yeah.
a circle with the flags in different areas. It doesn't have to be busy.
Yeah, so subtle and just,
Understated.
yeah, love that.
Very much like how Boston's doing this summer with their True Colors moment, where it's just
Yeah.
the most soft, calm thing with shape. It's just beautiful. That's what we were trying to go for.
Love the little expansion of that shape there briefly.
And then we wanted to get into the battle of good versus evil. If
Right.
there's subtext to the design, that's what's coming after.
We're only a
this.
couple years removed from Angels and Demons,
Yes.
Cadets 2011, so common theme here.
So this is where Paul got to flex a little bit. And there's a drill move here that Mike and I cleaned for hours.
This is crazy.
This, and then there's something else here shortly. Just trying to get the drums through.
Whew. Yeah, Crowback, just go back there and
Yeah, oh, clean.
clean those. Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
this super impactful.
Some great beats. Seamlessly into the drums. So this right here took hours. I can't tell you how long it was. 'Cause it didn't really lay on the grid
Yeah.
Right.
until the resolution.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
All paid clean. And this is where you'll see the pacing change from a halftime.
Yeah.
Originally, this was written
Yeah.
in double.
Beautiful flute solo here.
Yep, which was also rewritten from originally a clarinet solo. It wasn't working, so we changed it.
Yeah.
So now you'll see the tempo bump up.
Like halfway
Yep,
between,
yep. Little simple modulation. And eventually will take us to the famous Jeff Sacktig
Yep.
drill. Back to the wings.
Nice.
This is a little play on the Shirley Doherty wings from the Blue Devils.
You know, and the costume changing of the Vision and their aesthetic constantly changing. It's a whole nother layer.
And if you want, there's a little, this is amazing drill.
Yeah.
Right here where it splits open.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
It's just
All the little shapes.
Oh
Jeff,
my God.
Jeff just nailed it. We did that a million times. And then right back to the wings. Fold in.
Nice.
It's just, and what's awesome about that, Jeff actually quoted himself in the show 2 years ago, Into the Grid. If you watch the last drill iteration, it's that drill done with 3 times the kids. So he redid it. It was a little, for all of the Vandegrift nerds out there, that's where that came from. It was Jeff quoting himself visually. But yeah, it's just, every time I watch it, it gets me excited. What a great show.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was now 11 years ago,
Yep.
and I was 19
Wow.
years old when I got to be a part of that staff. And just thank you so much for, man. I we talked about it a little bit on my episode, which will, by the time this is released, has already been out. But
Sure.
you guys were just so patient with me, and Paul was so patient with me, and it was just such a really special place to work in those early years. So I'm just so thankful to get to be a part of
Absolutely.
it. And I didn't really get to ask you this, so we'll just talk about it briefly. But one of the other things about Vandegrift that is so awesome is that it was just a great place to work. I mean, there was a vibe, intentional or otherwise, that and if you've never been to that part of Austin, I mean, I think part of it's geographic. It's beautiful hill country. The weather's, it's just, the sunsets are beautiful. It's just really cool to get to go out there and be in that part of the city. But some other things you did, Jeremy, I think that were great. Were like, I think maybe in that time this was less common, but just like wearing jerseys and shorts to football games.
It was not common.
It was not common at all, and I think more and more people are doing that now. And like for me, as like a high school or a college age tech, I was like, this place is so cool. Like everyone's laid back,
Yeah.
and talk a little bit, really, like briefly about your philosophy with things like that.
Yeah, I just wanted it to be comfortable for everyone, and we didn't always get along. That with any staff of great teachers shouldn't always get along.
Yeah.
Sure.
But they should always get along as far as the public recognizes it.
Right.
They should be seen as a unified front. I called it the dream team. It was very purposeful that I thought it was the dream team of getting to work with my best friends. I mean, Mike and I grew up together, like quite literally grew up together. So I've known him since I was in 5th grade, he was in 3rd grade, something like that. And Paul I knew from Texas State. SDub. So it was literally the dream team, and I just wanted to put things in place that made it feel comfortable for everybody. And everyone had their own domain. That was the other thing. Like, I'm not going to tell Mike Howard how to do that. Like, hey, go. You're responsible for that. What it looks like, I don't care. Like, just do it. But there was always this mutual respect. Like, Mike knew that I was going to handle my business. I knew he was going to handle his. We all knew that Paul was going to handle his. Steph, vice versa. So everyone kind of kept each other accountable. But like you said, with the jerseys and things, that wasn't happening. Like that people were, and and let me put this out there because I'm not trying to offend anybody. If dressing full out, tucking in and belting and tying and coating, that's you do you. Like that is absolutely you.
Yeah.
And you should not worry about what other people think if other people are in jerseys. For me, it wasn't me. It was never me.
Yeah.
My entire life, I wasn't the shirt tucked in, belted guy. It just wasn't. So when I had an opportunity, and I knew I was going to be schlepping stuff all over a field, and I'm going to be doing this, so I was like, well, whatever. Like, I'm going to wear shorts and a jersey and a hat, and I'm going to put my hat on backwards. And if people don't like me because my hat's on backwards or I'm wearing a jersey, then okay, well, I'll handle that. I'll deal with that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I really didn't care because I wanted my kids to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And if they saw Mr. Spicer roll in a suit at a marching contest, they're not going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
When they see me in a jersey with my hat on backwards and my shorts, my track shorts, they'll go, "Oh, there's Spicer."
Another day.
That's
It's
our
just
guy.
another day. That's a
Yep.
great
Yeah.
thing.
And
That's great.
that's how we did it. And my principal allowed us to be that way. I mean, the whole idea of jeans on Friday and all that, we wear whatever we want to wear whenever we want to wear. At that period, you probably saw me walking around the band hall with either flip-flops or no shoes on because I'm just comfortable like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was my home away from home, so that's how I treated it. And I think all the staff made it their own in that way as well. And we just owned it. That's just who we were, and we were comfortable, and consequently our kids were comfortable, and they played well. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Seemed to work out for you guys.
Yeah, no, 100%. We're already kind of touching on the next topic is that, describing your ideal high school program and talking about being comfortable and like being true to yourself so that your students can do their best. What other aspects and what other, things do you place importance on that lead to a great high school program in your mind?
Well, we talked about the development of the individual player, and I think that's everything. And we talked about mutual respect, but I want to go down an avenue that maybe but maybe it's not always thought about, and that everyone needs to have a place. And for all the young teachers out there are students in your band program that just don't care about being good on their horns. They're never going to quit band. And they'll tell you all the things. This is the other thing that I learned in my career, is that you'll hear from students. You as teachers have heard it. We hear all the things. My parents make me do this, or I'm doing it for the PE credit. And what I want the young teachers to understand, they're just saying that. They're playing a role. They love the band program, but not to be good on their horns.
Yeah.
Everyone has to have a place. And you need to have that third band or fourth band or second band if you only have two. You need to have a place for them where they can be a part of it. They may not care about going to All-State or any of that, and they may buck you every step of the way, but they have a place. And they're not there to be good on their horns. They're there to belong to something. And I think that's part of the ideal and the creation of the ideal, and defining the standard, that there are places for everyone, and that you modify based on their ability levels for them. That's okay. Like you don't have to do what we want you to do, but there's a band for you that you can achieve and succeed and be a part of the program. You may not get a primary spot on the field, but you will have a role in some capacity to help the program out. And I think that's key, and I think that's part of the ideal as well. But I think everything founded in and built upon mutual respect, I think, is a huge part of it. I mean, we could get into the minutia of great players and so many kids making region band and all of that, but all of that happens when the culture's in place, when the culture of mutual respect, when the culture of excellence is in place. Like that's what I want to make sure that I don't glaze over or gloss over. Like, it's not rainbows and butterflies. Like, the kids and the staff and everyone, as all those kids and staff at all programs, we're working our butts off.
Yeah.
You're having to crank, and there's no shortcut to excellence, and there's no shortcuts. You can't. It's gonna come through sweat. It's gonna come through sweat equity. It's gonna come through hard work. It's gonna be putting in long hours. That's just what it takes. Yeah. There's not an easy way to it.
Takes what it takes.
It does take what it takes, Nick Saban. It takes what it takes to be great. And you have to do those things. And I will say also in the beginning, and I used this quote, and I was blessed by my principal and might continue to use it, was, I don't negotiate how to do band with anyone. A kid comes in the very beginning, well, I don't want to do this, and I don't want, okay, that's fine. Well, I'm going to quit. Okay. I mean, in the beginning, we had several kids quit, but I didn't beg them. I mean, we had 42 kids in band. What is 41 going to be?
Right.
What is it? What's 39? So it doesn't matter. Yeah. And some teachers would go, well, we're already small. Every kid counts. You're right. They do. But if they don't want to do it your way, that's okay. Don't get mad about it. But a parent's, well, we're going to do this. No, we're not. I don't negotiate how to do band with anyone. And my principal, who's sitting right there or right at the front office, he supports that.
Yeah.
So, and I could always back it up with facts, and I could always back it up with data that it's what we're doing is student-centered. You may not understand it, and that's okay, but I'm not going to negotiate with you about how my degree says music educator. So this is what it's going to be. I'm sorry. But that kind of line in the sand helped protect the culture that we were going for.
Yeah.
And if there were kids that made decisions and chose to do things that was against the culture or against the idea of defining the standard, they were removed. And you were probably around when some of those kids were. We didn't play with that kind of stuff because it was too important for all of the other children and all of the other parents in the community, that there was this sense of, this is a safe space.
Yeah.
Inside the band hall, my kid is going to be safe. I know they're going to be pushed. I know they're going to be challenged. I know all of those things are going to occur, but at the end of the day, I also know that they're going to be looked after and cared for and loved.
Yeah.
So I think as part of the ideal, that's part of it. Culture is everything. Chrissy says it, culture is everything. It's all about culture, and culture will define every aspect of your program. So yeah.
Love that. Well, similarly, talk a little bit about, what does the ideal head director look like for a program? What are some of the general things that you want to see in really great head directors, and maybe what are some of the pitfalls that can come with that role? And then follow-up would be, what does an ideal assistant director in a band program look like?
I think they're one and the same. I just think a head comes when they're ready to be a head. But I think a good director is a good director. Some assistant directors never want to be a head. Ever. And that's great. Good. Like, we need great assistants in the world.
Yeah.
And they would rather just sit in the background, and they get to do more of the teaching side of things and maybe less of some of the administrative stuff. But I think the key to being a good director, I guess it would go back to having mutual respect for your colleagues, and a willingness to, as we started with, a willingness to always want to learn and to improve and to get better at it. I think that's key. I think that would encapsulate all of it. Like, I think there needs to be, in our profession, a part of it is, especially in the fall, there's a coaching aspect to it.
Yeah.
And I think band directors could learn from coaches. And like I study coaches, some of the greats out there, Coach K, Nick Saban, and even I had a great coach at Cedar Park, Chris Moss. But there's something to learn from the motivation side of it. There's a coaching aspect to the fall, especially.
Yeah.
But also taking that into the spring of motivating kids and getting kids excited about sit-down band.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that. So you have to have that level. And if that's not in you, that's something that you need to work to develop. That skill of coaching and getting kids excited, I think, is a key component for any director. But I think you brought up pitfalls and where do things go awry? I think in anything, things go awry in communication or lack of, or unwillingness to. And all that to say that I had some knockdown dragouts in the beginning. Like Manny Maldonado and I, that they're legendary arguments. But again, Manny and I have known each other quite literally, when I say this, our whole lives, from like second and third grade. Manny and I known each other. So we were just comfortable with each other, and we were brothers. So in that, it led to like 22 and 23-year-olds yelling at each other. But it was important to me, and I learned a lot from that I changed after that, and that was never going to happen at Vandegrift. Like, would we go back and forth? Yes. Did Paul and I have some big arguments? Yes. Did Mike and I have some disagreements? Absolutely. But it was all founded in mutual respect, and there was always going to be an open line of communication. I'm going to tell you what I feel. You're going to tell me what you feel.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle. Sometimes I may just have to pull the executive card on it, but more often than not, we would come to a mutual understanding. I think for any directors out there, just staying calm, and at times of disagreement, working to stay as calm as you can, and coming from a guy that's not calm. My hair is bleached out from marching band, but it's fire engine red, and my personality matches. So you have to try to find the best of you, and sometimes I did a good job of that, and other times I didn't, and that's okay. You just apologize and try to be better. But I think in terms of the ideal, it's someone willing to learn, someone willing to step outside their comfort zone, someone that will always treat others with respect and care and compassion, and then is a good communicator. And I think any of those things will lead to you being a successful, if you choose to, head director, middle school, high school, or otherwise.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's more about the personal qualities. The role comes secondary to the personal traits.
So that's the on-the-job training. Like, that can all be taught.
Yeah.
That all of the role, all the band stuff can be taught.
Yeah.
Even if you come in and you don't have the best set of ears, that's okay.
Yeah.
There are tricks that you can learn. I used them that can help you be a better educator. But you have to all the other stuff first, and then you learn how to do the gig from mentors and all of that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tricks and tips, can you fill us in? What are some fundamental rehearsal techniques and strategies that you have found successful, and maybe you either learned them earlier or later, and you just come back to them, you see them work over and over again?
Well, one of the big things I use, there's a ton that we could go into, but I just want to throw one out there when I was thinking about this, is the use of mini bands. And when I would get in front of my concert band, like the first year that I told you that my band got taken over, like, I would drop the baton and they're playing something, and I knew it sounded bad. I just didn't know why.
Yeah.
And I would guess and it wouldn't get better, and I would guess and it wouldn't get better. So I started, but I always knew, like when I was working with a chamber group, I'd be like, it's him, it's her. Mm-hmm. They're out of tune. They're not tonguing the right way. That's a wrong note. Whatever.
Yeah.
It was. I could hear it because there was only 4, 3, 6, octet, 8 playing.
Yeah.
So I took that concept into a concert band. This is where this started happening for me, and my band was mini bands. And I would take a concert band of 60 kids and split them up into mini bands of 10. And we'd have 6 mini bands. And I'd say, okay, band 1, let me hear you. Band 2 through 6, you're on air. And then I knew immediately, I was like, oh, well, it's the trumpets, or the soprano voices, flute, clarinet, oboe, trumpet are not in tune, and I could hear it. And then the next day I'd say, okay, sweet. I'd fix that. Group 2, you're up. Everyone else air. Group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6. You put it all back together, and you're like, oh, band sounds good. So then I took that outside. I was like, well, if that works in sit-down band,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
got to be exponential outside. So now you go outside and you have your mini bands, and there are 12 kids on the field playing in a band of 150. And he's like, okay, hands up, band one, who are you? And you have kids on the 20 side one to the 15 side two, front to back everywhere.
Yeah.
And the kids will tell you like, oh, I can't do this. Like, no, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You just did the rep with everyone. Now just do it by yourself. Let's hear what you actually sound like.
Yeah.
And it teaches the kids what they actually sound like in addition to the staff like, oh.
Yeah.
And then you can just take some personal inventory about, okay, I need to help this child. I need to make sure I need to do this and this and this and this. But
Yeah.
the use of mini bands was one system that I thought was really beneficial to us
Yeah.
in the beginning and all the way through. And I preach it now. I also talked about it in marching band, specifically doing the math. And if you're not a UDB user, I would highly recommend it because the program does it for you. But
Yeah.
there's so much information that you can glean from that app. But doing the math at using quarter and halfway, all of that stuff is huge. I think those are some tricks to the trade. I think the use of the Harmony Director, I don't think people use it enough. And if not a Harmony Director, the Tonal Energy app, outside, amplified, used constantly, I think is huge to ear training. And I think more people should utilize that if they don't, and figure out a system or method to get it outside with some kind of speakers. Use your speaker system, something. Even if it's just a old-fashioned long ranger, if those are even used anymore, like use a long ranger.
We
We just
one.
resurrected ours.
Yeah, and they're still they're Frankenstein right now.
We're gonna buy the
at
company
Vandegrift.
that sold it, and that's gonna be our new business venture.
Good old electrosonics, man.
Yeah.
Those things are best things money can buy, but then they went away.
Yeah.
But use that. Use your voice systems or whatever people are using now so that you can project some kind of Harmony Director drones outside for the students because it helps with pitch and helps with intonation and ear training. So those are just a couple.
That's
Yeah.
great. I love the individual accountability aspect of that. In percussion, we talk about all the time. It's like, if you have a snare line of 5 or 6 kids playing the thing, well, there's no magic dust. I have no magic water where, hey, there's going to be a clean snare line. It's only going to be a clean snare line if that kid can play it correct and that kid can play it correct and every person. And that same thing goes for the wind. So I love that mini band idea to you can just take account of like, hey, we need to help that person. That person's not quite getting it. And then as the individual achievement rises, the whole thing, the whole product is like amplified.
And the kids, like the other thing that it does as percussion teachers, y'all don't get to hide.
Yeah.
Like there are visual sticks moving up and down
Yep.
or doing things like percussionists, same thing with color guard.
Yeah.
Color guards don't get to hide.
You can't hide.
Wind players get to hide.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you have to be honest with yourself, band directors. Your kids are hiding. And some of the kids are hiding not maliciously.
Yeah.
Right.
They know they sound bad. So rather than hurt the band, somewhere subconsciously in that 14-year-old's mind, they're like, well, I don't want to mess the band up, so I'm not going to play. And then they never learn how to do it.
Yes.
So creating a system like mini bands where it's safe,
Yeah.
where they're not by themselves, but they're kind of by themselves.
Yeah.
And we just never made a big deal about playing. I'd be like, Riley, play. I don't want to. No, just play.
Yeah.
Like, play.
Yeah.
Play.
They
But
have
from
to
the
do it.
beginning, that would be trained from just playing an 8-count tone on F. Let me hear you play one concert F with the drone.
Yep.
And they got used to hearing a drone and playing individually so that when I got to mini bands, they're like, okay, well, I don't sound good, but I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So you make it safe for them, and then you call them out and give them information.
Yeah.
But it's the only way to do it, to create a system where we can hold the wind players accountable like the percussionists get held accountable
Yeah.
visually.
That's like that is big,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
And like you said, we could go into a million, but let's kind of use this as a springboard for the next question, which is what have you borrowed from the percussion community in your teaching? This was originally and still is a percussion podcast. A lot of our listeners are percussion educators. What are some things that you've admired about the percussion world that you maybe taken and kind of follow up? What would be some unique ways that you would engage the percussionist when you're in the concert band setting?
Well, what have I stolen or taken or any of that? Let's start with who did I get it from? And I've named all three, but many of my best friends in my life are percussionists. Manny Maldonado, I grew up with. Mike Howard, one of my longest best friends. And then Paul Pate, percussionist, colleague and friend. All three of them have impacted my life at a real high level. And because they were all percussionists, then I was hanging out with other percussionists.
Yeah.
So I was surrounded by percussion constantly. And I would listen to how they talked about rhythm, how they talked about pulse, how they talked about ensemble, all of those things. And I would steal stuff and use it with the winds. And I remember the first year with Vandegrift, because they were babies and they had no pulse. So we were using 16th timing with the winds, stomping, picking their feet up and clapping.
Yeah.
And we would start with just downs, 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 downs. And that it took forever.
Yeah.
Forever to
That's why so many people give up on it.
Yeah, and it takes
Yeah.
time, but that was just downs and ups. And then
Yeah.
over time, Mike would get us into E's and U's, and it was just 16th note time. It was 16th timing that y'all have been
That's
playing
great.
since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But we would use those type of exercises with the winds. So the idea of pulse and ensemble and developing internal pulse came from all of those gentlemen. The other thing that I took from them, and that I think it's a Paul Pate quote. You might have heard it, or it's a Mike quote, one of the two. But I think it's Paul. Is rhythms are right or they're wrong. It's math.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be hyperbole. There are instances in swing style or pulling and pushing or living behind the pulse or whatever. But in general, especially for what we're teaching,
Yeah. Right.
rhythms are right or wrong.
Yeah.
And the kids like to gray the rhythms out. And they're like, no. It's math.
Yep.
Do the math. The math is right, so do the math. So them instilling that in my brain was huge. The other, because I heard it a lot, but some of the most, in addition to the rhythmic and the pulse, that's probably the obvious answer that you'll hear from me, but some of the best musicians I know are percussionists. Because all they have is just the strike of whatever they're doing. They have to create the line, and all musicians have to create the line. I'm not disregarding any. I'm a trumpet player. My wife's a flute player. And all musicians have to create the musical line, but percussionists really have to exaggerate. So, picking up from my friends and watching them talk about music and how they talked about music and the line of creating intrigue or whatever it was that we were trying to do, I stole that from them. The other thing if I were to give advice, and this sounds silly, but step one to engaging your percussion is to talk to your percussion.
Yeah.
And especially in the advent, not everyone does out there, and so I'm not going to live on that pedestal, but in the advent of percussion directors, wind band directors have just, they throw their hands up. If it's not going well, they come to you like they can't play their march.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, teach them how to play the march.
Right.
Like it's boom chicks.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing for my band director friends out there, that you need to know how to talk to concert percussion.
Yeah.
You have to be able to know where on the timpani head they're supposed to hit, and how you get the best tone quality, and how to do a roll the right way on a cymbal. And if you've never actually crashed cymbals, you need to learn how to crash cymbals, and you need to learn how to play a snare drum the right way. And then if you want a lot of times percussionists get bored in the back of the room, right? It's the thing we hear because let's be real, their parts are easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most, in my opinion, not all, especially with recent compositional techniques that composers are using. But a lot of that stuff is falling in the 4, 5, and 6 grades.
Yeah.
It's still the class 1 to 3s. I mean, it's easy music for the percussion in many instances.
Yeah.
So yes, they get bored. I mean, they hit a boom and then they wait forever. And then there's a is boom. So yes, so the way to engage them is to actually talk to them. And to know, like, you need to break through that wall.
Yeah.
And one of the big things, like, I pride myself in when I go to region bands now, is I'm able to, because I don't get to teach high school kids in a daily capacity, but I can talk to those percussionists in the back, and you see many of them when I talk to them, their eyes light up. They're like, oh, the region band guy's talking to us.
Oh, he knows what's up.
Yeah, he knows what's up. When I can talk timpani technique, and it's nothing like I have my list, and of course I have my limitations. I can't do the stuff that y'all do, but I have my toolbox, and my toolbox will get me pretty far. And if my toolbox runs out, then I have my friends that I call to help me when it's not going well. But there are lots of things that I took, but that's the number one thing. I think the band directors need to talk to the percussionists, and they need to have a working knowledge of all of the color instruments.
Yeah.
How do you play a triangle? How do you do a thumb roll on a tambourine? How all of the Latin instruments, how do you play them? Like, you need to be able to do that at least at a surface level.
Right, yeah. It's just like you wouldn't expect maybe a percussion director to go up and play like 4 full chromatic scale on a clarinet, but I need to be able to go up and say, how can I make that tone a little bit better? You know, how can I adjust the embouchure of a clarinet player or a trumpet player or a tuba player to just change the tone? Or you know, we love to walk back and just help with rhythm all the time.
Yeah.
You know, play a little louder, play a little stronger, blow a little bit more air. I mean, those are things that, just like we are expected to do it for wind players, I agree with you that I feel like just a surface level knowledge from our wind director friends would really help bridge that gap. And you actually just reminded me of something, because you were actually one of the region conductors for our region this last couple of years, and you got to work with some of our students. And the thing that I think was really smart in the way you did that was you picked great music, but you also played that Thelonious Monk tune, and like programming music for the percussion that gets them engaged in, like, hey, I know I might have to, you know, chill on the, you know, whatever the slow piece or the lyrical piece, but you know, Mr. Spicer picked this really cool percussion thing that's I get to be featured in, so I think that was really smart.
Yeah, they need to be excited about it.
Yeah.
And that's for anyone out there that's programming for region bands. You have to keep your percussionists in mind.
Yeah,
like they learn 4 etudes more than anyone else to be here, and then they get to come in and play a march. Yeah. They get to roll on a cymbal. That's not fun.
Yeah.
Like you need to give them something.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So you're talking about the region band thing. So you're post-head director career now. You've gotten to serve as co-director of Cedar Park Winds.
Yes, sir.
The owner and founder of the SASI Leadership Group, and program coordinator for a significant number of band programs across the country.
Yep.
Can you talk about Cedar Park Winds, how that was founded and what that encompasses, and then maybe some of your SASI leadership thing and your program coordinating? How are you balancing all these things in a post like day-to-day career?
Yeah, so the Cedar Park Winds, that I was always a fan from afar. Chris Yee started the Cedar Park Winds with Manuel San Luis. Manuel was the director of bands at Cedar Park Middle School for years. Chris, now director of bands at Cedar Park High School. Prior, he was at 4 Points and then Canyon Ridge. But in 2007, he founded it on a trip back from Midwest. And it was just a bunch of directors, not even a bunch, and maybe 20 that met in the Cedar Park Middle School Band Hall, and they were just sight reading band tunes out of the Cedar Park Middle School library. And then it's grown from there. I became a part of it. I forget exactly the year. Somewhere I was always helping in some capacity the latter years of Vandegrift, and then when I stepped away from Vandegrift in 2014, I started helping more. Chris gave me an avenue to get a vehicle to still be a conductor and a musician with the Cedar Park Winds. So I was an assistant for several years. We took the band to Midwest in 2017, at our 10-year anniversary. So then after that 2017 year, as Chris' role elevated at Cedar Park High School, he couldn't do it all, and it was basically him turning over the baton to me of, hey, you need to do this. He's still involved. Mm-hmm. He's still an assistant conductor. He's at every rehearsal. We do it together. But I became more of the artistic director, if you will, or if there's a title, and the lead conductor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it grew out of that. It's I'm proud to say that it's a vehicle for private lesson teachers and band directors to continue to play, and the majority of the ensemble are private lesson and band directors. That we do have our other industries represented from, you name it. There are stay-at-home parents to people that are electrical engineers and finance and banking and lawyers and medical and we have all of that. But the lion's share of it is musicians and band directors, and that was why it was founded. Chris, when he left Ithaca College, one of his mentors told him, find a way to continue to play your horns.
Yeah. And
it stuck with him, and he created a way. Yeah. And Cedar Park Winds has now inspired many other community bands, Mansfield and Sugarland Winds and all of those. And now we're fortunate enough to have Cheryl Floyd is in the flute section, and Mr. Floyd comes to every rehearsal as he retired from ASB. So he's at every one of our rehearsals. And
they put on a great concert, by the way. I think we were both at that concert.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So we were able to, we have Mr. Floyd with us daily, and much in the same way Chris gave me an avenue after I stepped away from teaching full-time. We've done the same with Mike Howard. So Mike is now on the conducting faculty for Cedar Park Winds, and he conducts every concert. So he has that. So it's just grown into this beautiful thing. One of the highlights was performing with Doreen Ketchens a few years back at TVA. Wow. It was incredible. And then we're fortunate. We've been accepted into Midwest again this year, so we're performing in Chicago. So here we go. We'll have our first rehearsal on the 22nd of August. So here we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's Cedar Park Winds. The SASI thing all came out of wanting to do things differently. in '02 at Cedar Park, my first year teaching. Ron had done some stuff when he was in Houston, Ron Morrison, with leadership things at the schools he was at, Sci-Fair and some Galena Park ISDs and things. And it kind of came to fruition in what he was doing at Cedar Park with the leadership stuff. And our drum majors had come back from another camp and really didn't get out of the experience what I thought they should have gotten out of it. And we just kind of put this brainchild together to put together our own drum major camp. I would reach out to a friend of mine who I had met, Dr. Nick Williams, at the University of North Texas. At the time, it was a baby when we met in 2000, 2001. And I would do all the stuff that I did with Cedar Park in terms of the marching to the education side of things. Ron would do some leadership, and it was founded in '02. We did our first drum major camp at the Stagecoach Inn, right there off of 35 in Salado, Texas. We rented out the whole joint. And we begged Central Texas band directors around to come to us and give us a shot. We're trying this new way, and the rest is history. Fast forward to today, we did almost 170 camps around the country this summer, servicing over 500 band programs. So,
and do you have the student impact also?
This summer I don't have the numbers, but it's over 75,000 students since the beginning that we've tracked. It's been great, and the key to, I think, the success is continuous improvement and not resting on what we've done in the past. The camps of '02 look completely different than the camps that we're doing this year in 2024.
Yeah.
There are some foundational things that we do every year in our curriculum that will never change, but every year the curriculum changes.
It's always a different theme.
Yes.
Kind of keep it fresh.
Yes. So that was key for me as well, that I don't want to just rest on our laurels of we're just going to do the same thing every year. This is what we believe. There are foundational things that we believe.
Yeah.
Sure.
And sometimes we'll rebrand those into other things, but those pretty much are structured, and we do those every year, but it's surrounded with 3 to 5 to 6 new modules every year that elevate for where we are in the times. Like when the pandemic hit, we titled the thing Overcoming. We navigated to a virtual setting, and we were able to do over 100 camps virtually online with kids.
Wow.
But it looked differently. We weren't doing 6 hours online. Like I was adamant that we were going to do no more than 3 hours, but those 3 hours were split into hour segments. So like there was always breaks, and it's just a constant idea of how can we impact students where they are right now in their development and create curriculum that's meaningful for them.
I love that fact that if you see a problem, are you not satisfied with what's out there, and put the work in and do it yourself.
Yeah, just try.
Just try it. You know what's gonna. Hopefully, what's going to work best for your kids, and just go forth and try it. And
if you're passionate about it,
if you're passionate about it,
it's going to work.
It's going to work, man. I love that.
You got to go for it. So that's where SASI came from. And the other key to the success of SASI is not me. It's getting the right people surrounding me. And you'll see on our staff, there are like luminary band directors, like these legend band directors, and then you have band directors that are assistants, you have first year teachers, you have old, you have young, and everywhere in between, and that's also very purposeful because who you resonate with is not going to be who you resonate, and maybe not who I resonate with.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that when we're sending people out, that there's a cross section of personalities, of instruments, of ages, of all of those things. And as I've gotten older now, it's very important that I continue to hire the next generation of teachers. So we have the 23-year-olds back on the staff again, and the 24 and the 25-year-olds, mixed with the 45 and 50-year-olds and everywhere in between. So I think that's key, getting the right people. And it's cliche to get the right people on the bus, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like you have to get the right educators on the bus, and then other educators want to send their kids to camps or bring those people to their campus so that they can learn from them, which is key.
It's awesome.
That's awesome.
What a great organization, and we can do a whole podcast probably on just SASI, but
Right.
love to hear a little bit more about just specifically those two programs. So I'm going to steal this one from you.
Go for
it. For any current or future student leaders, because I think we've gotten more students, band students, maybe some college students listening. What's some advice you might have to someone who might be in a current leadership role, or maybe that's something they aspire to do in the future?
I think the key to all of that is your willingness to serve. I think if you come in it with that mindset, you're going to be a good leader. And that your job as a leader is to improve the lives of the people that you're leading. And if you take it from that capacity, then the decisions that you make are easy. Am I making decisions that, well, they're not easy, but it's it's easy to know what the right answer is. It may not be easy to make that decision, but you know what the
Sure.
right answer is because ultimately you're making the decision that's in the best interest of the people that you're willing to lead. So I think that the coming in with the servant heart is key to their success for a current leader or someone aspiring to be a leader. And then I think relational capacity is the next thing. Because in this day and age and in any day and age, but especially nowadays, they don't have to listen in any capacity. And the question that I ask students all the time is, why should they listen to you? Why should they care what you have to say? And the answer is they don't.
Oh.
And quite honestly, us as adults, even our leaders, we don't necessarily have to listen to them. Like, man, yeah, maybe they could fire us. Well, I get stuff like there are extremes, but in general,
Sure.
you don't
On the
have to.
day-to-day.
The key to the success of a leader is creating a want in others to listen.
Yeah.
So especially for student peer-to-peer leadership, many of them are leading their peers of the same age, and in some situations, those juniors are leading seniors.
Yeah.
So how is a junior going to get a senior to want to listen to them? Sometimes they may not ever be able to, but the way that you do it is through relational capacity. You have to build positive relationships with people that you want to lead, and you have to mend or try to navigate through any negative relationships that might exist. And sometimes an agreement to disagree or whatever. So I would say that creating a one another through relationships is huge, and then just having a servant heart. I think those are, if you do those two things, you're going to be a good leader.
That's awesome. Yeah. This is so well said, so poignant. Is you gotta have relationships. You gotta create those, and I think finding ways and helping your students bond with their sections.
Yes.
Is super important. I think we do a good job of that here, especially the percussion side of things. We spend a lot of time together doing all the things together, so that our leaders have a chance to build those relationships and say, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I can get you there.
Yeah.
Just follow me.
It's building trust.
Yeah.
It's building mutual trust and respect, for sure.
Kind of the last, triad of your professional endeavors post head director is your marching band program coordination. Yep. Talk a little bit about that. What led you to be passionate about that and pursue a career in that? And what are some similarities and differences from being a head director or a band director?
The idea of program coordination, I fell into it. I didn't seek it. When I quit teaching full time, I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to grow SASI.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I really didn't have any other aspirations. But when I stepped away, my inbox blew up. Can you help? Can you help? Can you help? Can you help? And at first it was just clinics. And then after that first fall, my inbox blew up. Can you help us put our show together? I was like, okay. Yeah, I guess. I guess. I mean, because I always did it at Vandegrift. I always did it at Cedar Park. I mean, I had people help me along the way sometimes, but they were my ideas, and it's how I wanted it to be put together. So that's what we did. So it was just by happenstance. I never thought of myself as a quote unquote creative, if you will.
Yeah.
It was just people wanted help, and I had ideas of things that I would always make sure happened, so that I knew the students would be successful, and I just took that into the coordination role.
Yeah.
And it grew. I mean, 1 or 2 led to 5 or 6, led to 36 one year, which
gosh,
it
Jeremy.
was crazy, and I'll never do that again. But
Right.
I'm sitting at 15 right now, and it's good, and I'm able to help and service everyone the way that they need to be helped and serviced. But yeah, I kind of fell into it, and I put it the priority for me is making sure students are set up for success in whatever capacity that may be. And making sure music is written in a way that the students are set up for success, and that drill is written in a way, and that the color guard choreography or dancer choreography is written in a way so that student success is a priority. Yes, we're pushing envelopes, and yes, we're doing this, but they need to feel success in whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we push and ask students to do more than they are able, and then they're never able to get to the fun part of performance, the sheer musicality part of performance, the emotional side of performance, the reaching out and just grabbing the audience part of the performance, because they don't have the technical things under wraps. So if we can get beyond that sooner, then they can get to the fun part of performance, which is engaging an audience member. So that was kind of where it all came from, and it's grown into. I have a team or people that I work with, and it's been great. Like we just get to, it's a creative outlet for me to come up with new and different ways of doing things. Sometimes it's music or shows that concepts that I've always wanted to do, but I would have put my spin on them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, seen space shows, and we've seen Romeo and Juliet shows.
Yep.
We've seen night shows. We've seen AI based grid Tron shows. We've seen all these things.
Yeah.
But what's my spin on them? And
Yeah.
Well, we've seen the season show, but what's my spin on a season show? Like those kinds of things. It just gives me a creative outlet, and I like it.
And so your role is generally like from the very top, coordinating all the different aspects. You're not like a drill designer. Do you drill design specifically for anybody or write music for anybody? It's all just kind of making all the puzzle pieces work together.
Yes, I'm picking the music. I'm if requested, offering cuts of the music. I'm giving ideas for what I want to see visually. I edit all the music. I edit all the drill, or I ask the drill designers to make changes to things that I don't like. I'm with graphic designers when we're designing costumes and flags, and all of that comes through my filter. So I'm not the one doing it, but I have a team that helps me, and I'm guiding it. The creative outlet of what the show is and why it is and how it is, that's me, and then I have people in place to help create all of the elements.
That's awesome.
That's great. So why should a head director hire a program coordinator? Why not just do it all themselves? What is the benefit there?
Well, I would say they don't have to hire a coordinator. And I think some people, I wanted to answer this first and foremost, saying that you don't have to. Like, it's not a compulsory. Can a coordinator help you? Absolutely. For sure they can. But you don't have to. If you have ideas and you know what it wants to be, then you need to do it. And there have been groups that I've worked for that the head director really already knew what they wanted. They thought they needed to hire me, but they really didn't. Like, they had all the ideas and all the answers, and their answers were quite honestly right. So there have been times where I'd be like, you should just do this. Like, go with your gut. That's how I learned how to do it. I knew what I wanted, and so go. Now, on the flip side of things, if you don't know, or the head director job is just so overwhelming, which many of the people that get hired now as program coordinators are getting hired because it allows the head director to take one other thing off their plate.
Yeah.
In the context of longevity and staying in the game and not getting burned out and all of that stuff, hiring a coordinator can help you because they can take the creative idea off of your plate. They can take the communication with the designers off of your plate. Like, they can do all of those things to help, and then you just have to check in with one person on occasion. How are we looking? What things coming in?
Right.
Everything's
Here's a
looking
video
all right?
of how rehearsal's going.
Yeah.
You know.
Like it allows you some time to breathe.
Yeah.
So if that's you and maybe you're a little overwhelmed, especially, or it stresses you out to put a marching show together, well, then reach out to a coordinator and they might be able to help you. But on the flip, it's not a compulsory.
Yeah.
Like, you can very quickly in a Google search find all the best drill designers. You can find all the best brass arrangers and percussion arrangers and woodwind. I say brass, thinking drum corps, but all the best music arrangers, all the best percussion. You can find them all. The choreographers. You can find graphic designers. Like, there are people out there, and you can just do it. Create your own team. I think that's important too. That's okay. But yeah, the coordination thing. I think the easy answer is it can help take things off your plate.
Yeah, I love to see more businesses in this day and age. It feels like not just from a program coordination standpoint, but like we work with with our good friend Andrew, who owns a business that he does all of our electronic sound design, and he comes in and you've got the Ruben Rodriguez's of the world, Pit Hacks, who come in and like mic the front ensemble for you, and that's just one less thing that we have to do, and then that's someone you can put your trust in, to take care of that for you. So I think I kind of already know your answer to this next question. You've alluded to it a little bit, but it's a little bit of a two-parter. Is there an oversaturation of program coordinators currently, or maybe within the last few years? And what do you think like qualifies someone to serve in that role?
Is there an oversaturation? No. I think that would be like, is there an oversaturation of travel companies? Is there an oversaturation? My reply to that is there's room for everybody. And much like a certain staff member on SASI is going to connect with a certain staff child in a certain way, the same thing exists in the coordination role. Like, sometimes it's oil and water, and someone else, it works beautifully. I mean, I've gotten gigs from other coordinators that they always told me, tread lightly. Tread lightly. This could be tough. And I got the gig, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. This is the easiest thing ever. Amazing. And on the same side, I've told others, like, this can be a challenge, but they've taken the gig and they've connected beautifully.
Yeah.
So do I think there's an oversaturation? No, I don't. I think it's because several well-known head directors might have stepped away from teaching into this coordination or design role. It may seem that way, but I don't think so at all. I think everyone has a unique voice.
Yeah.
And they all do it their own way, which I think is really cool to see. All of the successful program coordinators out there, I think like keys to success, I think you need to be hyper organized,
Yeah.
hyper organized, because you're doing the head band director role ish for 5, 10, for me this year, 15 programs. So you have to be hyper organized, and you have to be, in many instances, an over communicator, but you have to communicate constantly. I think, and then the obvious to me is you have to be a creative, but that looks different for different people. And then if you're not the most like boots on the ground creative in certain aspects, like there are things that I know what I like, but I don't know why I like them sometimes. And there are things with color or costuming or fabrics or things that I don't know. And that's why I surround myself with the Dave Duffys of the world, because the man's brilliant and he gets it. And I surround myself with Travis Wade, and I surround myself with Molly Favre, because like all of these people, they understand color and they understand fabrics and how things flow and why a flag should have a graphic this way because it spins a certain way. Like those are things that I wouldn't consider. But and just it happened recently with a program that I'm doing with Duffy, and I sent a flag to him. He's like, and I loved it when I saw it. I was like, that thing's gorgeous. And his reply back, too busy. There are these 3 black lines. Take these 3 black lines out and make it this. And initially I was like, interesting, but I trust the guy, so I really liked it. And he's like, when it spins, all you see is the black lines. And when I first saw it spin, I was like, it looks awesome. But when he told me that, and I went back and I watched it again, I went, he's spot on correct. And I went to Molly and I was like, Molly, he's talking about this and we need to tweak this and blah, blah, blah. And I put him on a thread, went back and forth. And I was like, Duffy, did I cover it? And he was like, yep, you covered it. Fast forward a few hours later, and we had a flag, and dang it, if it wasn't exponentially better than the one that I loved initially. But then watching it spin, I got out of it what Duffy knew I wanted out of it. And he liked it. So it's just those things that you have to surround yourself and just be comfortable knowing that you may not know all the answers, but find people that can help you. And I think that's key to the success of a coordinator. It's awesome. Organization, communication, and being willing to surround yourself with great people. But in order to do that, you got to check your ego.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole other thing we go in and talk about for sure.
For sure.
Kind of wrapping up here. We have a few left. This has been great, Jeremy. We've really loved talking to you. So we just got a few more for you here.
Let's talk about burnout. Like, it happens. What are some of your tips, or what are some of your experiences with burnout? Work-life balance is a big thing. Maintaining good mental health as a band director these days. Any advice for hopefully more than 2 band directors watching?
Well, I would say on the burnout thing, and half joking, half not, like I wasn't very good at managing that. If we're gonna have a real moment, like if I'm anything, sometimes I'm a workaholic. So just because work brings me joy sometimes, so then I just go all in. So I think, and quite honestly, it's why I burned out of teaching, because I was just going so hard, running a marching band from 02 all the way through 14, and not really pacing myself. So I think one of the keys for band directors out there is find stuff that's not band. Whatever that looks like for you. And I had those things, but I didn't do them enough.
Sure.
So I think finding things that aren't band, and when you're not in band, force yourself to not talk about band. Find other things to talk about. What are other things that you could talk about? Because inevitably when you talk about band, then it leads back to, and then it's the problems of band and the successes of band, and then you can go down the rabbit trail of band, band. I remember we used to have those Paul Pate barbecues over at his house, and there were times where Paul would say, and he would tell all of us when we came, like, it's no band night. Like, no band tonight. Like, we do that a lot, but tonight's going to be a no band night. And we would talk about who knows what. I mean, it was sports or this or that or politics or whatever. We were solving the world's problems, whatever it was. But I think that's important. I think finding time to actually take a real break is important, which is hard to do. In terms of the mental health thing, I don't have any training in any of that stuff. And I myself, like I manage and deal with mental health things like we all do on any given situation. But if you're struggling with your mental health, I think you need to seek help for sure. And be honest with yourself. I still think there, unfortunately, is a stigma on therapy, and there shouldn't be.
Right.
When we're sick, we go and we take care of ourselves at a doctor. And if you're not feeling well mentally, you need to go and take care of yourself at a doctor. That's what they're trained to do. So I think that would be huge. But some things that I've done on the mental health side of things is staying active. It was always very important to me. And you don't have to be I'm not talking about trying to have six-pack abs and your swole band director body. I'm not talking about any of that. If that's you, sweet. But I'm just talking about being healthy for you, whatever that means for you. Trying a way to get outside. Are there ways that you can, during the day, just stop at one point and go for a walk around the campus and come back? Can you get outside into real sun during the day, especially like in those winter months? Can you get yourself outside and just walk around, even if it's cold, just so you can see the sun during the day? Like, what are those moments that you can find? What are you doing to keep yourself physically active? I think that's important to managing the stress of it all, to managing the burnout aspects that come with it. Like, all of that, I think, is key critical. And I mean, and the stock stuff, like how much, people say it all the time and you roll their eyes, but how much water have you drinking lately? Like that. And the same thing we tell kids we need to listen to. Did you eat breakfast this morning? So band director's version of breakfast is like whatever, a donut and a cup of coffee. Like, and that's fine. I did it too, but can you do that in moderation so that sometimes have your coffee, but I'm having some peanut butter toast and a banana on the way in, or whatever. What you're putting into your body is fueling how you're gonna be able to respond that day.
Yeah.
And fueling who you are as an educator. So if you want to be a better educator, then you got to take care of you. And that's not selfish, in my opinion. It will allow you to be more present for the people that you care about, both in your band hall and outside of your band hall.
That's echoing very Jeff Ostemore type of mentality that he's kind of promoting these days. We love, big fan of Jeff
his
here.
His new book is beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I was thinking about you got to fill your cup.
Yeah.
You got to be able to fill your cup if you're going to fill anyone else. And that's everyone's passion, is doing that. And if you don't fill your own cup, then you get that burnout aspect. And then,
It's a concept of that I don't know who first said it. I think Jason Robb said it, but to give him some credit. But the idea of deposits and withdrawals when you're teaching.
Yeah.
It should happen with you as a human as well. And his big thing with like leadership and that, and as young teachers, is all the way through the first part of marching band, you're putting in a bunch of deposits in the bank accounts of your kids.
Yeah.
In terms of relational capacity and building those relationships so that they want to listen to you, so that when you get to It Takes What It Takes by October and you start withdrawing, then you're staying in the positive with your students, but you're going to constantly withdraw for that whole month of October.
Yeah.
But if they have no money in the account and you start getting in the negative, that's where culture starts being an issue. It's the same thing with you as a human.
Yeah.
You have to invest in and deposit, in yourself, both in giving yourself a time for break, eating in as much as possible more healthy, doing something active in as much as possible for whatever that looks like for you. Those are all deposits, so that when you do withdraw, because you're going to take out withdrawals, October is October. It's going to be what it is in marching season. We can say, and we can, less is more and all of these. Yes, you're right, but Friday night games are Friday night games, and their away games are away games, and go into this contest whether you choose to go or not. Like, you're going to get back late, and then sometimes you may have critique the next morning or not, or you find some time with your family on Sunday, and then you rinse, repeat, and do it all over again. But the only way that you're going to navigate October is that you've invested in yourself, so that you can withdraw, and then November you get some time to deposit again. So I just think that is key critical for anyone.
I love that. I love that your mindset is, mental health is just health.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's wonderful. You're feeding yourself good stuff. You're doing all the things. You're exercising. Your body feels better. It's easier to get through those harder mental days because you're physically like, I do feel good. Yep. Right? This is just temporary. I can push through. That's one thing we're trying to get our kids to do. We got to do it for ourselves.
And it's one Chris E. I was just at a rehearsal 2 days ago, and he talked to the kids at the end of rehearsal about when your brain or heart, it's not always just your brain and it's not always just your heart, is telling you not to do something, like you're tired or that. Like, sometimes you have to make the conscious choice, and it's a skill set to make the conscious choice to say, I know I'm tired right now, but I got 30 minutes left in rehearsal. Or I'm running that marathon, as Chris does, and I'm physically exhausted and I'm literally crying, but I got another mile.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it. Like, I'm not to the point where I'm physically hurting, or like that I'm ill or any of that. I hurt right now, and in a mile I'll be able to get through it, and that's a skill set. Now, I don't want to say, like, if you're in pain or anything, push through and blah. Like, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, knowing that threshold and learning what that is for all of us is key, and it's a skill.
Growing that skill of being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great interview. We're so thankful that you were able to make it up here, and I know you had a long drive, and you got another. Is the trek from here to Denton the same distance from Austin to here? It might just be, but
it's the same time.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're thankful for you to come up here and share your views with everybody. And we've got a couple really short segments we like to close with.
Sweet.
Just kind of like some silly segments we've kind of done. I'm gonna do mine first.
Go
if that's
for it.
okay. This
Go
is
for it.
a new one that I created just for you.
Oh, I can't wait.
And so this is Marching Band Design 101 with Jeremy Spicer. So the idea here is you're gonna answer never fails, overdone, or depends on the program. I'm just gonna give some like
Never fails, overdone, depends on the program.
I'm just gonna give you some like spitfire like marching band designs thing. Okay, so first one, company front.
I would say done the right way never fails.
Okay,
But
done the right way.
You got it. How you get into the company front and how you get out of the company front matters. But if it builds the right way, never fails.
Never fails. Okay, second one, Blue Coat's tilt effect.
Depends on the program for sure. I think the obvious is it can never fail, but it depends on the program and having the resources to do it.
Sure.
If you're talking about the pitch bend,
Yeah. Sideline screens.
I like them. So I would say, to me, it's the first line of effect visually.
Yeah. I noticed that about your shows.
Yeah, it's you can do them in different ways. Juliet letters.
Yeah.
That was something Duffy challenged me with and how we came up with that together. There are different ways you can do them and some things that I do now with extensions off the top to make them more. But I would say done the right way never fails.
Same. I'm assuming the answer is the same for backdrops.
On that one, I would say definitely done the right way.
Yeah.
But it could
Midnight's
be,
Beauty.
Yeah,
perfect
it could be
example.
it could be overdone, if not done or utilized. Some people see it as just set pieces, and I do as well. But some people want to engage with the set pieces,
Yeah.
and I agree that you should do that. On the field wall things, I would caution, and this is just a quick. I know I'm
No, that's okay.
rabbit treading
No,
here
it's
real
great.
quick, but especially in Texas with only 8 hours, and most people don't even rehearse 8 hours. Moving props, you need to think about that.
Yeah.
And I've done it once or twice, but I'm not really a fan just because of the logistical things that come into play with it. But if
Yeah.
you have a team that can do it and figure out how to manage it, that would be something. But yeah, field walls can be overdone, but you got to do it the right way.
Double reed soloist.
It depends on the program.
Trumpet scream holdover note.
Overdone. Coming from a trumpet player, and most
I like that.
most high schools don't have the gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Coming
Yeah.
from a dad that has a very talented trumpet player, like what we think sounds cool. One kid eking out versus like you hear it when the Blue Coats do it, and that
Right.
thing's coming through a monitor, and that
Yeah.
kid's got a double G chops for days, if not higher.
Yeah.
And can peel paint. Like that's one thing.
Yeah.
But one little kid that can whisper it out,
Yeah, right.
Overdone.
Probably not worth it.
Nope.
Long drum major retreat salute routine.
Way overdone.
Thank you. I
Just-
kind of felt that. That was
Just salute and get on with it.
Yeah, get on with the
Boom,
day.
boom, let's go. Next.
forced arch.
Way overdone. There are times there are times that I challenge choreographers, like in this show, we're not going to use it.
Yeah.
Can you not use it?
I had to
See what we come
consult
up
with some of my band director friends for some of these for you. Okay, so some music that may or may not be overdone or never fails. Appalachian Spring.
Well, we can't do it anymore, so
Oh, dang it, really?
because of Copeland.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With copyright stuff, like Copeland is
Oh, I saw
Copeland
the
is
thread
like-
about
almost off the table because the Copeland Foundation is not approving things right now. You
Oh,
can
wow.
get some stuff done,
Yeah.
but it has to.
Such a
It
process.
has to be
You have to
illegally.
send. Well, no, you have to send it in, and they have to approve it.
Oh, okay.
And they don't really want you to change it. The problem is it's marching band, so you have
It's
to.
violins.
You have to.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah.
It's violins. That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like.
We
App
tried to
Spring.
do John Williams this year. I'm never going to try to fight that battle ever again. with my
Yeah. So
middle
I
school
would
kids.
say specifically Appalachian Spring, it has been overdone. What the question I would have for anyone that says they want to do it, and I did it in 2010, is what are you bringing new to the table?
Right.
Like anything that, and sometimes there are new ideas. There are, but there are also a bunch of old ideas that are redone, new and different.
Yeah.
For instance, like the Blue Coats surround their show with so much new and different,
Yeah.
and how it's paced this year, and how the set design is just what Rayford and all of them. It's just exceptional. But they're playing "Lost It to Trying" or whatever, like as their closer. and that's been done.
Yeah.
Like but what they did with it and what those creatives did with it, it's just exceptional. And how they took their conceptual idea and brought it into that song tune. Like, I think it's just how you do what you do. So
Cool.
A few more here. Firebird.
overdone. I love it, but overdone.
The Planets.
Overdone, and I've done it a lot.
Chike 4.
Depends on the program. I love that music, so I would say.
Did I have any more here? Oh, Beethoven 5. Vandegrift, perfect example.
Yeah. Depends on the program.
Yeah. Romeo and Juliet.
It depends on the program. I love that music.
I love, yeah.
And when that's a prime example of you take something that everyone knows, you surround it with things that people know, but it wouldn't think of surrounding it with. Kissing You, which was used in that Claire Danes remake of Romeo and Juliet. That's where Duffy got that.
Oh, with DiCaprio?
Yeah, like the late 90s or whatever that was.
Yeah.
It's a really cool movie, by the way, if you've never seen that.
Yeah, so that, or Jar of Hearts, like, so it's, but it was, the bookends of all of that was Romeo and Juliet and Chike. Like, that's what it was. And that served what Mike wanted, and then we surrounded it with other things. So I think you just have to, what new are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. And then last couple here, Fast Feet, Flutter.
Overdone. I think
More creative ways to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I think I love the advent of it.
Yeah.
I love the advent of being able to organically just.
Yeah.
The problem is that we watch a drum corps in the summer and we watch a ballad that's 2.5 minutes as a high school director, and we go, we want to do that, and it's all organically produced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll spend a day, like during those during like their spring training,
Move-ins and stuff.
like it's brass staff, drum staff. Y'all can have the day, go on the town. It's visual staff day, and they'll spend an entire day or 2 or 3 or 4 producing something. And for a Texas band director, when they spend a day, that's 8 hours. That's your entire week.
Yeah. That's it.
So you have to use it sparingly and the right way.
Yeah.
So some of those organic visual developments, you don't want to tell your drill designer, oh, just get them over on side 2 in a blob. And then you're left with 150 counts to fill. All of a sudden, it's like,
what did I get myself into?
Yeah, what did I get myself into? So,
That's a great peel back the curtain moment for people who don't understand how that stuff happens. And then you want to do it and you go, oh, I didn't know it took all this to make that happen. I love that.
So a couple of choreographed phrases mixed with more organic development, fluttered, etc., so on.
Yeah.
Sweet. Sounds great.
Last one here, sight ripple to a guard solo. Catch.
I think it works every time. If it's
a catch.
Yeah. if it's caught. But yeah, I like it, and especially how it brings focus. But and this is a little side marching band design 101 for me. It's not just the event. Mm-hmm. It's how you get a payoff. Like some people are like, we got to play loud. Well, there are several drum corps that I can show you that they like whatever happens prior to the arrival, they get to the arrival and it sounds great. You just don't want to clap.
Yeah.
And you don't know why you don't want to clap. What makes that moment work is how it gets into that moment. And then even more so, what a lot of people don't think about is how it gets out of the moment. Yeah. So the moment is there, but you have to build anticipation to the moment. The moment gives it to you, and then you get out of it in such a way that people go, either they're throwing things like, oh, that's amazing, or you get the, wow. Like,
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. And both of those reactions are great ones. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's my new segment. Thanks so much, Jeremy. That was great.
Love
it.
Marching Band 101.
The WGI sheets talk about that, like the journey, right? Like that stuff matters.
It does.
That's great. I have a segment that's pretty silly. Good idea, bad idea, based on my inability to focus on any one topic for more than about 47 seconds.
Got it.
It's really simple. Good idea, bad idea, and you can elaborate on why.
Okay.
All right. So first one, Chicago.
The city?
Sure.
Good idea. Always a good idea.
What about the band?
Oh, love it. Saturday in the park. But I grew up, not for nothing, I grew up, my parents listening to the horn bands of the 70s. So all of it, like Chicago was one of them. Then they got into the 80s and they got into their little romantic side of the 80s pop ballads. But no, love Chicago. But Chicago, always a great idea.
Always a great. Okay, awesome. Chinese food.
Depends on the restaurant. Always a great idea. Love it.
Some great Chinese food in Austin.
I was going to ask, do you have an Austin restaurant recommendation?
Oh, Austin restaurant? What style of food?
Just what's one of your faves?
La Condesa down on 2nd. If you like interior Mexican, like real deal, not Tex-Mex Mexican,
Yeah.
that would be one of them. If you want Chinese, Den Ho Barbecue or Ho Ho Barbecue. One's by Pflugerville, by Conley. It's former Conley band parents. And then Den Ho's right off of 183 in Olin.
Nice.
By Target. But yeah, both of those fantastic. And obviously all the barbecue joints, like all of those are so many. Interstellar Barbecue, if you've never gone, check it out.
Okay, I remember that one. Doing the gritty.
Bad idea. Let me elaborate. Depends on your age.
There you go, yeah. There's a like a
Is it really this thing?
the thing with the feet.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
real thing.
that was last year's thing.
It was last year's thing.
I'm constantly called upon to do this from the
Really?
students. Yes.
They want to see us do it.
Yeah.
It's a big health risk. I don't want to pull something.
Yeah.
I don't want to pull something. You know,
Be injured.
Injury is not worth it. Good idea, bad idea. Becoming a music educator.
Good idea. Yeah, good idea. I mean, my son's going to do it. I think we need more great music educators in the world, and it's a very noble and honorable profession, and you get to make music every day with kids. Like, good idea. Always a good idea.
Yeah. Starting a podcast.
Good idea. I like it.
Yeah.
As long as you have something to say. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Just like a creative and a program coordinator. Like, I think there's room for everybody, you know, in this space. And the people that have something to say and say it in a unique way are successful at it, like y'all are.
Yeah.
So I think, good idea.
Awesome. Well, that's it. I thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming out here. And, you know, we really got to dive into your history and your time as a band director and what that's looked like. So I just know a lot of people are going to love hearing those stories and your insight. And so just thank you so much. And yeah,
Thank you for having me.
safe travels over to Denton. We'll close it out here. Thanks everybody for joining us on this awesome episode of the Dream Job Podcast with our guest Jeremy Spicer. My name's Riley Warren with Shannon Jacobs. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Shannon
You know my name too.
Yeah.
I know my name. You know my name. It's fine.
Everybody knows his name. And remember, you can find us on YouTube and Facebook and Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast. And follow us on TikTok. We like to post little clips on there too. So thanks everybody. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.